Chapter 503. On the contrary, Black Panther was even more calm. Young master, before we get rid of those guys from the dispersed praying mountain, we need to get rid of this guy downstairs who is spreading lies. If we let him keep talking, I am afraid more and more people will believe him. Even if we do this in secret, it will certainly affect the reputation of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. Cold, murderous intentions emerged from Luo Ting's eyes as he fixed his gaze outside the window. Only, he saw spots of red flowers. They were dark red azaleas. This blood-red color made the murderous intentions in Luo Ting's eyes even more intense. Black Panther, go investigate. See who is spreading the rumors. I do not wish for this person to live to see the sun tomorrow. Luo Ting instructed coldly. Black Panther immediately nodded. Young master, I will do it now. Regardless of who he is, I will make him disappear without a trace. This Black Panther was Luo Ting's trusted subordinate. Other than having a very high cultivation, he was also very familiar with all kinds of methods. No matter where, if he wanted to make a rogue cultivator disappear, it would be a piece of cake for him. After Luo Ting watched Black Panther disappear in the sky, he felt incredibly irritated. This kind of irritability was something that a proud son of heaven like him had never encountered before. Born in the heavenly Luo Taoist sect, he was born with a golden spoon in his mouth. From the beginning of his training to his teenage years, wherever he went, he was treated as the apple of people's eye. It was because everyone knew that this young man was nurtured by the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. He was nurtured as a Tao warrior. With such identity, Luo Ting had never suffered any grievances from a young age. He would not have to worry about anything. All he needed to do was to fulfill his role as the son of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. The only sense of frustration came from Morong Su. Currently, this sense of frustration had caused him to lose his balance. Initially, he thought that it would be easy for him to deal with Qin Wushuang from the heavenly Luo Taoist sect and a guy from the human countries. However, half a month had passed. Not to mention Qin Wushuang himself, he did not even catch a shadow of him. As for the plan he had devised, it couldn't be said that it wasn't sinister, but it was as if the heavens were trying to make things difficult for him. In the past, in their eyes, the human countries that were like flat ground to them were like the abyss of hell. Those freelance martial artists had all died at the dispersed praying mountain. Even Kong Dai and Shui Yu, freelance martial artists at the profound void martial stage, had to nurse a grievance at the dispersed praying mountain. One could imagine that the attacking powerhouse at the dispersed praying mountain was not ordinary. Even if it was Luo Ting himself, before he found a countermeasure, he would absolutely not dare to enter. Since his opponent could kill profound void martial stage experts like Kong Dai and Shui Yu, he might have the ability to kill Luo Ting. Although there was still a gap between the profound void martial stage of those rogue cultivators and Luo Ting, who was favored by the heavens, there was still a gap between them. Be it in terms of equipment or other aspects, they were at a disadvantage. However, if Luo Ting were to head to the dispersed praying mountain himself, he would never have the courage to do so. Because of this, the accumulated anger in Luo Ting's heart could be imagined. Just as he was brooding, the Black Panther suddenly walked out of the void. Young master, He Bao's tone was somewhat hurried. What's wrong? Could it be that you can't even take care of a freelance martial artist? Apparently, there was some displeasure in Luo Ting's tone. He Bao said with a stutter, No, I was downstairs. A moment ago, I seem to have seen a person. Who? Luo Ting asked coldly. Could it be Qin Wushuang? If I am not mistaken, it should be Miss Mu Rong. These words were like a bolt from the blue, and instantly, Luo Ting was dumbstruck. Then, a strange smile emerged on Luo Ting's face. Inside this smile, it was filled with uncontrollable anger. He said while gritting his teeth, That slut finally showed herself? He Bao said, At that time, I only caught a quick glimpse and did not dare to get too close. I didn't know if she had elite warriors protecting her. Thus, I did not follow her recklessly. Elite warriors? She left home for such a long time. How could she have gotten any elite warriors to protect her? Luo Ting was extremely dissatisfied with He Bao's excessive caution. If you let that slut leave your sight, then it's the same as not seeing her. Since Miss Mu Rong is at the Ironwood State City, surely she would not have gone too far. Young master, could it be you're going to see her? He Bao still spoke with a cautious tone. I think at this critical juncture, it's better for young master to not see her. Or else, that Miss Mu Rong would feel that it was truly young master's scheme to deal with that Qin Wuxuan. He Bao did not dare to get too close because of this reason. If he were to expose his identity before an acquaintance, people would associate it with the various speculations about the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. They could not help but associate it with Luo Ting. In this case, Luo Ting would face the danger of being exposed. Luo Ting said angrily, "If it's truly that slut, I must see her." He Bao immediately said, "You must not. Young master, for this matter, you must not be willful. He Bao, this slut is hiding from me. Could it be I have to hide from her? To see her, now is definitely not the right time. From my point of view, the best choice is to follow her and keep following her. At the same time, I will send someone to inform Mu Rong Qianji. If Senior Mu Rong does not care, we will have an excuse to accuse him of deliberately indulging his daughter. If Mu Rong Qianji wants to get involved, how could Miss Mu Rong not return to the floating snow house with him? As long as she returns to the floating snow house, we must fulfill this engagement. By that time, as long as Miss Mu Rong marries over, it would be young master's business to take revenge and humiliate her. Bystanders would not be able to interfere. Now, if you go rashly, what can you get? Humiliate her with a few words? If you let her leave in a fit of anger, I am afraid young master will never see her again." Luo Ting's chest rose and fell rapidly. However, in the end, he suppressed his anger and nodded. "Then for today, we will not beat the grass to scare the snake. He Bao, immediately contact Mu Rong Qianji through your connections. This Senior Mu Rong should not have returned to the floating snow house." He Bao nodded. "I will do it now. Let's see how Senior Mu Rong will take care of it. If he does not care, immediately inform the honored Taoist and report all the facts. Our heavenly Luo Taoist sect will not be fooled by the floating snow house." Luo Ting appeared to be filled with righteous indignation. Naturally, He Bao was a yes man. Naturally, Luo Ting did not need to explain these matters. He knew his limits. He knew better than anyone how to do it and how to handle it in the best way possible. "Young master, for that freelance martial artist, should we not touch him for now?" He Bao asked again. "Why should we not? Could it be that we don't think he has spread enough rumors? Must we let him bite me in front of my face and accuse me of plotting against the Qin clan?" Luo Ting was extremely annoyed. He Bao gave a helpless sigh. "Now, Murong Su is at the Ironwood State City. I am worried that she has elite warriors next to her. If she knows that we are secretly dealing with that freelance martial artist, everything will be exposed. By that time, not to mention young master, the entire heavenly Luo Taoist sect will fall into an awkward situation. It's a small matter to offend the human countries and those freelance martial artists. If we offend the heavenly Emperor Qin clan, or even the current heavenly emperor, or let the other forbidden spiritual zones find our weakness, it will not be easy to handle." Luo Ting felt extremely depressed as he waved his hand. "He Bao, do as you see fit. We will wait until that slut has left the Ironwood State City. No need to wait for her to leave the Ironwood State City. I will test the waters myself. If there are elite warriors protecting her in secret, I will know when I try. If there are none, everything will be easy." Luo Ting nodded. "Okay, He Bao, this time you must do a good job. I don't want my name to appear in the discussion of those freelance martial artists." Inwardly, He Bao felt uncomfortable. From beginning to end, he had done everything beautifully and there had never been any loopholes. Why did those freelance martial artists suddenly dig out such important information? In the end, whether it was a baseless guess or some evidence, He Bao could not figure it out. At least, he was certain that it was not him that had made a mistake. However, He Bao knew clearly that he was only a dog trained by the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. He would only have a future if he worked hard for the sect without complaint. Instantly, he bowed to Luo Ting and left silently. On the other hand, after about 10 days of battle in Qin Wushuang, all the freelance martial artists that had entered the dispersed praying mountain had died. For 3 days, not a single freelance martial artist had entered the dispersed praying mountain. When Murong Su attempted to enter the Xian Yuan mound from the human countries, Hissing Sky Phoenix had discovered the figure of Murong Su immediately. When he asked for instructions from Qin Wushuang, of course, Qin Wushuang did not set up any obstacles and did not disturb him. He allowed Murong Su to pass through easily. This was also the reason why He Bao was able to see Murong Su at the Ironwood State City. In these 3 days, Qin Wushuang took turns to summon the 5 great spiritual beasts back into the sealed scroll. He started to explore the usage of the genuine spiritual post and started to pour spiritual qi into that sealed scroll. As Qin Wushuang had expected, indeed, he had an abundance of crystal stones. Even if 12 spiritual beasts had come out together, he could provide them with spiritual qi 3 times without holding back. After he had finished replenishing the 5 great spiritual beasts, Qin Wushuang decided to continue moving forward. He arrived at the border between the dispersed praying mountain and the Xian Yuan Mount. As he pushed forward the defensive line step by step, the further they were from the human countries, the further away they would be from danger. Currently, Yinglong had been sent out by Qin Wushuang to scout for information. Naturally, the information Luo Ting and He Bao had heard at the Ironwood State City was Yinglong's work. In the previous dozen days, Qin Wushuang was only defending passively. Then, sending out Yinglong to spread the news was the first step of Qin Wushuang's counterattack. Heavenly Luo Daoist Sect. As soon as Qin Wushuang thought of these 4 words, he could not help but feel angry. The first time he had entered the Xian Yuan Mound, it was because of his heavenly Luo Daoist sect's assassination order that made each step difficult for him. Now, this Luo Ting had used such a vicious scheme to deal with Qin Wushuang. Currently, Qin Wushuang only had one thought, and that was to counterattack without any hesitation. The first shot of his counterattack would be from Luo Ting's body. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.qijian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 504. At the border of the dispersed praying mountain, a figure flew rapidly from the direction of the Xian Yuan Mount. Hissing Sky Phoenix saw this person's figure from afar. Master, Yinglong is back. Hissing Sky Phoenix's eyes lit up as he said. Indeed, Yinglong arrived from the sky and stopped at the slope where Qin Wushuang and the others were standing. Currently, Yinglong's mind and body had been completely controlled by the venomous insects. He had become a puppet. It's my honor to meet you, Master. Qin Wushuang said lightly. Get up. You've been gone for 3 days. How is the situation? Yinglong said. Miss Mu Rong has already arrived at the Ironwood State City. I've already taken care of the matter you asked me to do. Besides, apparently, those freelance martial artists also believe my words. Now, everyone in the entire Ironwood State City is talking about this matter. Even if everyone did not get any evidence, they're already suspicious. Well done. Qin Wushuang nodded. Before he had finished speaking, suddenly, Mole crawled out from the ground. Master, someone is following us. As soon as Yinglong heard these words, beads of sweat poured down. He had never thought that he would be followed all the way here. I deserve to die. Yinglong felt extremely ashamed. Qin Wushuang was rather calm. He waved his hand and asked Mole, How many people? How strong are they? Master, there's only one person and I cannot figure out his strength. However, he should be at the profound void martial stage. Qin Wushuang said to Yinglong, Get up. This matter has nothing to do with you. When an elite warrior at the profound void martial stage followed you, he did not fly, but used the underground technique. His strength is far above yours. This is not your fault. Yinglong stood up gratefully and retreated to the side with a nod. Qin Wushuang said, Okay, continue to follow him. We will make a plan when he enters our defensive perimeter. Mole accepted the order and left. In a moment, Mole stuck his head out again. Master, that guy's already here and has entered our perimeter. All right, Precious Pig, you go and meet that guy. Qin Wushuang knew that sending pure, ultra-precious pig was the most appropriate choice in this situation. Sure enough, the pure, ultra-precious pig set out and arrived at an open space. The fat on its body trembled continuously. Suddenly, it let out a loud cry and stomped its 2 legs. With this stomp, the ground immediately cracked like a spiderweb. The entire earth vein was completely crushed by the pure, ultra-precious pig stomp. The person who was rushing underground suddenly felt the ground tremble. A powerful earth attribute fluctuation was rapidly fluctuating in the earth vein. This earth vein fluctuation was like a surging wave. Its momentum was very fierce, and it immediately stopped him from moving forward. Not daring to be careless in the slightest, he quickly protected his vitals and crawled out of the ground. Instead, he saw a spirit beast the size of a mountain standing in front of him. Raising his head again, he saw a handsome young man standing on the hillside in the distance. His arms were folded across his chest as he stood on the hillside, looking over in a relaxed manner. And the person he was tracking was standing behind this young man. As soon as Qin Wushuang saw this person, instantly he felt a strange sense of familiarity. Only, he could not remember who this person was. This person was dressed in black clothes and looked over with vigilance. He said lightly, "Who are you people? It was you who set up an ambush at the dispersed praying mountain to stop the passing martial artists, right?" As soon as this person spoke, Qin Wushuang immediately recognized him. At the same time, the anger inside Qin Wushuang's heart had been ignited. Indeed, this person was Luo Ting's subordinate. He remembered that Luo Ting had called him Black Panther. Of course, Qin Wushuang would not remember this person's voice wrongly. And from his temperament, Qin Wushuang also felt he was somewhat familiar. That day at the Wild Flame Cliff, although Qin Wushuang did not see this Black Panther directly, Qin Wushuang would never forget his temperament and voice. "Do you know this person?" Qin Wushuang turned to ask Yinglong. After a moment of recognition, Yinglong shook his head. "I don't know him." Qin Wushuang nodded lightly and said with a clear voice, "You swaggered and tracked my subordinate here. What intentions do you have?" That Black Panther said with a cold sneer, "Your subordinate?" This person spread rumors at the Ironwood State City. As freelance martial artists, we suspected that he had ulterior motives. Thus, we chased after him. This way, it seems that all the schemes, including everything at the dispersed praying mountain, were all arranged by you. Qin Wushuang kept sneering and sized Black Panther up with a mocking look. "Freelance martial artist? Mister, do you not blush when you say these words? You dare to call yourself a freelance martial artist?" Inwardly, Black Panther trembled. This young man did not seem to have a high level of strength. Yet why were his eyes so sharp? Especially his words. It sounded like there were some hidden meanings. Could it be? Immediately, Black Panther told himself that he must not lose his footing. At the moment, he said lightly, "Young man, in the end, what intentions do you have by creating those senseless killings at the dispersed praying mountain? Do you know that by doing this, you are becoming enemies with all the freelance martial artists in the Xianyuan Mound?" Although Qin Wushuang knew that this Black Panther was deliberately using words to trick him and make him admit that he was the one who had done the things at the dispersed praying mountain. However, Qin Wushuang did not plan to deny it. Again, a trace of ridicule emerged from the corner of his mouth. "Mister, I have seen many people who pretend to be confused despite knowing the truth. However, it's my first time seeing someone like you who keeps pretending to be confused. Could be that you don't know better than me, that the true enemy of all the freelance martial artists in the Xianyuan Mound is not me, but you." These words almost made Black Panther twitch on the spot. Apparently, these 2 consecutive words were pointing to something, and this pointing seemed to indicate that he had seen through his and Luo Ting's scheme. When he thought about the news that this person's subordinate had spread at the Ironwood State City, suddenly, Black Panther's entire body felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. Suddenly, he remembered, Could it be that this person had truly seen through my and young master's scheme? Or else, how could his subordinate have described it so vividly at the Ironwood State City, as if he had participated in everything himself? When he thought here, Black Panther's entire body felt a wave of disgust as he said with a cold voice, "Don't play tricks here. You have killed so many freelance martial artists. The elite warriors of the freelance martial artist world of the Xian Yuan Mound will not let this matter go." Qin Wushuang laughed. "Good, mister. Then tell me, where have the most freelance martial artists of the Xian Yuan Mound gathered? I was just about to let them go." Pure altar precious pig shook his fat body and cried out, "Master, don't talk too much with this guy. Let me swallow him and be done with it." Qin Wushuang waved his hand and motioned to let Precious Pig step back. Naturally, pure altar precious pig did not dare to resist Qin Wushuang. He mumbled and stepped back. Then, he glared at Black Panther with his two bell-sized eyes and appeared ferocious. Black Panther sucked in a breath of cold air. How could he not see that this fat pig was actually a spirit beast with an extremely strong aura? The strength of the aura was so strong that it made even an experienced and knowledgeable profound void stage expert like Black Panther feel waves of pressure. And what he had seen was only the tip of the iceberg of the other party's strength. Black Panther clearly sensed that around this young man, there were a few hidden existences that had yet to show themselves. However, they were using their aura to suppress him. Finally, Black Panther understood why the other party was able to carry out the slaughter at the dispersed praying mountain with such ease. With such a combination of strength, even in the Xian Yuan Mound, they were considered to have exceptional strength. Who is this person? Who is this person? Black Panther's head was full of questions. Each of the young talents of the first-rate powerhouses of the Xian Yuan Mound flashed through his mind and were rejected one by one. Until he thought about the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan, suddenly, a name popped out from Black Panther's head. At this moment, the expression of Black Panther changed abruptly. It seemed that his spirit had suddenly become clear as he remembered who this person was. You. Black Panther stared at Qin Wushuang with a highly vigilant gaze. Raging fire seemed to be shooting out from his eyes. "You are smart. It seems that you have already guessed who I am." Suddenly, Qin Wushuang changed his tone. "However, a long time before you knew who I was, I already knew who you were. Therefore, in the end, you will lose miserably in this game." Black Panther's face was ashen as he looked at Qin Wushuang. Disbelief filled his eyes. He could not understand how this Qin Wushuang had seen through all of this. Could it be that he had clairvoyant eyes and ears? Could it be that he could hear the thoughts of others from a few 100,000 miles away? How was this possible? Even an elite warrior of the Supreme Tao would not have such powerful divine skills. Black Panther. Qin Wushuang's tone did not have a trace of human emotion. He said the name of Black Panther. As soon as he said the two words Black Panther, the last line of defense in Black Panther's mind had completely collapsed. Qin Wushuang made a hand gesture, and hissing sky phoenix and one-horn mystical horse immediately came out from the dark. They formed a T shape with pure altar precious pig and surrounded Black Panther in the center. Qin Wushuang said with a leisurely tone, "This is called not taking the road to heaven, but barging into hell. Tell me, how do you want to die?" Black Panther looked around and knew that none of these three enemies would lose to him. In a one-on-one battle, he would not have any problems escaping. In a one-on-two battle, whether he could escape or not would depend on his performance. In a one-on-three battle, the hope of escaping would be next to none. Not to mention, Black Panther could vividly feel that there were elite warriors who were ready to make trouble underground. Even if he wanted to escape through the underground, certainly the tunnel would be locked. Perhaps once he went underground, he would be seeking his own death instead. Black Panther's face was pale, knowing that he had fallen into the enemy's trap this time. With a pale face, he murmured, "Are you really that Qin Wushuang?" Qin Wushuang smiled faintly. "Why? You and Luo Ting want to find me wholeheartedly. Now that I'm right in front of you, you can't recognize me?" Black Panther's face was pale as he sighed. "I really can't imagine how you did it. This is simply impossible. This plan, in the process of me implementing it, there was no flaw at all. How can you see through it? How is that possible? Qin Wushuang sneered. Yes, this plan of yours is vicious enough, ruthless enough. But speaking of which, you don't seem to believe that I can see through this plot. It's all destined by fate. It's not that you're not perfect, nor is it that there's a flaw somewhere. All these were told to me personally through your mouth. I told you personally. Black Panther's face was filled with an absurd smile, thinking that Qin Wushuang was deliberately making fun of him. But his smile became even more bitter. He kept shaking his head. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 505. Qin Wushuang still looked indifferent. Regardless of whether Black Panther believed it or not, what he said was the truth. Qin Wushuang, I underestimated you. I underestimated you. Black Panther was heartbroken. He looked at the three opponents who had sealed off all his escape routes and struggled in his heart. At most, I'll fight to the death. As long as I get out of this circle, I'll escape even if I'm seriously injured. Or else, for sure, this Qin Wushuang would not have let me die so easily. For sure, he would torture me in every possible way. Black Panther, if you're planning to escape, I suggest you give up. Even if you can fly, you won't be able to escape today, unless you're strong enough to overwhelm my subordinates. Black Panther looked at the pure, altar-precious pig, then looked at one-horned, mystical horse and the hissing sky phoenix hovering in the air. Any one of them was enough to give him a headache. Qin Wushuang, I know that I've lost today, but if you want to kill me, you'll have to pay a price. Black Panther's tone was also very strong. He looked like a cornered beast that was putting up a fight. Price? Qin Wushuang laughed. If I want to kill you, I can do it with a single thought. Why would I need to pay a price? Do you think you have any trump cards that can make us pay a price? Black Panther, I'm telling you so much here, not because you're eloquent, nor because I like to talk nonsense. The reason why I haven't made a move yet is because I feel that death isn't the only option for you. Black Panther's body trembled. He looked at Qin Wushuang suspiciously and asked, What do you mean? What do I mean? You're so smart. Why don't you take a guess? You want me to betray my master? Black Panther sneered. Do you have any other choice? If you do, tell me. Qin Wushuang asked teasingly. Black Panther thought for a while and said, Even if I agree, how can you trust me? It doesn't matter if I don't trust you. I naturally have a way to make you submit to me, Qin Wushuang said leisurely. The Black Panther looked at the three spirit beasts. You want to use the method of controlling spirit beasts to control me? Let me remind you that humans are unable to sign such a contract. No. Qin Wushuang smiled leisurely. Who said I was going to sign a contract with you? I'm just asking you. Do you have any other choice? Black Panther's face was ashen. He stared blankly for a while before he asked unwillingly. You have to tell me. How did you figure out my plan? Didn't I tell you? You told me yourself. Of course, Qin Wushuang wouldn't tell Black Panther the truth now. He just said something so mysterious that Black Panther couldn't figure it out. I told you? Haha. You're not going to say that I told you in your dreams, right? Black Panther's laughter was full of bitterness as he said with a sense of loss. However, to speak the truth, Qin Wushuang, from beginning to end, I did not wish to go against you. I did not wish for young Master Luo Ting to go against you. Of course, it's not because I'm afraid of you. It's because the price to do so is too great. However, that arrogant young man did not listen to my advice. Black Panther, I didn't ask you to speak such nonsense. You're only Luo Ting's dog. I don't care what you did with him in the past. I will only ask you one thing. Are you willing to die or follow me and turn against the heavenly Luo Taoist sect? Instantly, Black Panther's expression froze. Then, he looked at Qin Wushuang and said with a mocking smile, Are you crazy? Turn against the heavenly Luo Taoist sect? Although you have good strength now, and these contractual spiritual beasts also have considerable strength. However, do you think that with your little strength, you can shake the giant mountain that is the heavenly Luo Taoist sect? Ha ha ha. It's laughable that you are overestimating yourself. Qin Wushuang examined Black Panther with a gaze as if he was looking at a dead person. He said lightly, "This way, you are willing to be buried with the heavenly Luo Taoist sect? It's all right. Even if that's the case, I will satisfy you. Furthermore, I guarantee that I will definitely not let you be alone on the road to the Yellow Springs for too long. Luo Ting, it won't be long before he follows you here." Immediately, Black Panther narrowed his eyes into a line and looked at Qin Wushuang with full alertness. "Qin, even if you kill me today, I will still say the same thing. You will not be able to go against the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. Even if I follow you, I will not be able to do it. Who told you that I only have these trump cards?" Pure altar precious pig and hissing sky, Phoenix laughed recklessly. "If all of our master's trump cards are taken out, it's enough to flatten the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. Is the heavenly Luo Taoist sect one of the heavenly Emperor Eight Gates?" Stunned, Black Panther looked at Qin Wushuang with a puzzled look. Qin Wushuang said solemnly, "Black Panther, this is your last chance. Are you willing to die or follow me? If you still do not answer my next question directly, you will not have the chance to answer any questions in your lifetime." After he had finished speaking, Pure, Altar Precious Pig, and the other two spiritual beasts at the profound Void Martial stage became restless and prepared to attack Black Panther from all sides. A complicated expression flashed across Black Panther's eyes. He must say that at the crucial moment of life and death, all of his moral integrity appeared incredibly weak. It was not because he did not have moral integrity, nor was it because he was greedy for life and was afraid of death. He was thinking about how much true treatment he had received since he had joined the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. Before Luo Ting, Black Panther had come and gone as he wished. That Luo Ting had not truly treated him as a trusted aide. Indeed, he had treated him as a dog. Was it worth it to serve such master? Black Panther had never doubted that serving the heavenly Luo Taoist sect would allow him, a freelance martial artist, to have a lot of protection. However, at the same time, the various encounters he had encountered at the heavenly Luo Taoist sect did not make him feel any respect. It also did not make him feel the need to die for his loyalty. To be buried with the heavenly Luo Taoist sect? At this crucial moment, Black Panther was not reconciled. When he thought here, his last line of defense had completely collapsed as he gave a long sigh. "What do you want me to do?" Without a doubt, these words meant that he had given in. Qin Wushuang smiled lightly and made a hand gesture. Finally, Pure, Altar Precious Pig, and the others had slightly reduced their power to allow Black Panther to reply with ease. "It's simple. I want you to continue to approach Luo Ting and return to his side. Just pretend that nothing had happened here. You must not reveal any flaws. Only to be an inside man." Black Panther gave a long sigh. "No, being an inside man is only the first step. I must admit that your vicious plan had put me in a passive position. I need you to announce Luo Ting's scheme to the world when it's necessary. Let everyone know that this was Luo Ting's despicable method to vent his personal anger against me. Qin Wushuang. Only in this way, I can make those fearless freelance martial artists give up on the thought of heading to the human countries. Or else, if this continues, it will always be a trouble in the future." Qin Wushuang was already mature when considering this matter. He knew that killing Luo Ting and Black Panther would not work for now. Only by revealing the inside story to the world, it would have the real effect. Black Panther nodded slowly. "I must admit that Luo Ting was not smart to go against you. It was an extremely stupid choice." "Okay, exactly what do you want me to do?" Black Panther raised his head and asked. "First, return to Luo Ting's side. Wherever you go, you will leak your whereabouts. Let me know your whereabouts without spending any effort. This should not be a problem, right?" "No problem." Since Black Panther had made up his mind, naturally it would not be a problem. "Yes, when it's necessary, you must stand out and expose Luo Ting. That way, I can kill Luo Ting justifiably," Qin Wushuang said coldly. Kill Luo Ting? Inwardly, Black Panther trembled as he said in a low voice, "You must know that it's not an easy task to kill Luo Ting. That Luo Ting also has some trump cards. Killing him is not as simple as you think. Let's put it this way. With your current cards, if it was Luo Ting who had barged in today, most likely you would not have been able to keep him. Is that so? We will only know after we try. Regarding killing him, you don't need to worry. I don't need to borrow your strength. You only need to complete the task I've given you, and you will have completed your task. Do your job, and don't worry about the rest." Black Panther nodded. "Okay, you're also a smart person. I like to deal with smart people. To speak the truth, I also like to work for smart people. Although I don't know if your word a moment ago were exaggerated, to speak the truth, if you truly have the power to flatten the heavenly Luo Taoist sect, I am willing to watch with pleasure. You know, working for a smart master is 10 times better than working for a master who thinks he is smart, but is in fact extremely stupid. If you want to smear Luo Ting's name before me, then don't bother. Whether Luo Ting is extremely stupid, I have my own judgment." Black Panther gave a long sigh and said again, "Don't blame me for talking too much. Before you are prepared to deal with the entire heavenly Luo Taoist sect, even if you have the power, it's best not to kill Luo Ting. Even if you kill any of the elders of the sect, do not touch Luo Ting. The heavenly Luo Taoist sect is my target. However, Luo Ting is my #1 target. I know that Luo Ting is the genius of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect and the successor. If I kill him, it means that I will bear the pursuit of the entire sect and face their torrential anger. But what about it?" Qin Wushuang said coldly. "When he stepped out and secretly plotted to deal with my family and the sect, it was destined that either he would succeed or he would die. There is no third possibility," Qin Wushuang said with a determined tone. He clapped his hand, and Moon Palace Jade Hair crawled out from the ground. He said with a chuckle, "Master, what orders do you have?" Qin Wushuang said to Black Panther, "To show your sincerity, next, I will make some marks on your body to test your loyalty. If you're determined to follow me, do not resist. It is because if you resist, it will make me feel that you have changed your mind. In that case, they will use all their power to kill you." Black Panther gave a long sigh. He knew that it would not be easy to surrender. It would also not allow him to return to Luo Ting's side without suffering any losses. However, he had no other choice. Moon Palace Jade Hair shot a wave of serene blue light into Black Panther's forehead. All of his methods were the same as when he had controlled Ing Long. Black Panther only felt that when this blue light had shot into his forehead, a wave of cold air had entered his dantian and merged with his primordial spirit. He didn't know that the seed of this venomous insect had been quietly planted. It had firmly controlled the rope of his fate in the hands of Qin Wushuang. If he wanted him to live, he would live. If he wanted him to die, he would die. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chijian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 506. Black Panther only felt his entire body shivering uncontrollably. Next, his consciousness seemed to become blurry as if he had suddenly entered a miraculous chaotic world. Of course, this state only lasted for an instant. After a moment, when Black Panther regained his consciousness, the entire situation had changed. In his consciousness, an absolute sense of loyalty had been deeply implanted. This had completely reversed Black Panther's consciousness. At this moment, in Black Panther's eyes, there was no place for Luo Ting. "Black Panther, do you know what to do?" "Yes, Master wants me to return to Luo Ting. When the time is right, I will expose him. As for when the time is right, you should know since you participated in the entire matter, right?" Qin Wushuang asked lightly. "I understand. Work hard. One day, I will let you know. The choice you made today is not a disaster, but the smartest choice you've made in your entire life." Black Panther's body trembled slightly. Then, he nodded heavily and turned to leave. "Congratulations, Master. You have gained another capable subordinate," Moon Palace Jade Hair said with a flattering smile. Now is not the time to congratulate. Only when this card is fully utilized will it be the time to congratulate. Jade Hair. Tell everyone to prepare to depart in 3 days. Depart where to? Moon Palace. Jade Hair was also somewhat confused. To the Ironwood State City. Qin Wushuang's next target was the Ironwood State City. He knew that those freelance martial artists were already scared out of their wits, unless they were elite warriors at the perfect Void Martial stage. Or else, even those at the profound Void Martial stage would not dare to act rashly. After all, in the half a month of fighting at the dispersed Praying Mountain, Qin Wushuang had caused a few elite warriors at the profound Void Martial stage to lose their lives. Naturally, the elite warriors at the profound Void Martial stage cherished their lives and would not take the risk. Naturally, Qin Wushuang had his own plans for the 3 days later. 3 days of time was enough for Black Panther to do a lot of things and report back a lot of information. On the other hand, when Black Panther returned to the Ironwood State City, the sky had already darkened. Luo Ting appeared to be somewhat anxious. Seeing Black Panther return, he angrily rebuked, "Where have you been?" Black Panther said cautiously, "Young master, I first want to check on Miss Morong's whereabouts, and then I made sure that there were no experts protecting Miss Morong. Only then did I come back to deal with the rogue cultivator who spread rumors about you. Who would have known that the fellow was extremely cunning and fled upon hearing the news? I saw that he was heading towards the direction of the dispersed Praying Mountain. Thus, I followed him to see what was going on." "Then you've been there for so long. Have you actually seen anything?" Luo Ting asked unhappily. Black Panther shook his head. "When I chased him to the border of the dispersed Praying Mountain, I saw that he seemed to want to lure me over. I suspected that there was a trap and did not continue to follow him." Luo Ting's heart was filled with anger. "So, you have been following us for so long, but it was ultimately useless, right? Young master, at least we can confirm that the person who spread the rumors to slander you is most likely an accomplice of those people who attacked you at the dispersed Praying Mountain. What's the use of confirming this?" Luo Ting's temper became more and more irritable. "If you confirm this, the result will only be worse. Why would the other party set up an ambush there? Why would they send people to spread the rumors? Black Panther, tell me the answer. This is what you did. You did not do it cleanly and leak the information. Otherwise, without any evidence, how could they use my name, Luo Ting's name?" Black Panther gave a long sigh. Currently, he was no longer trembling with fear when facing Luo Ting like before. Now, with a different standpoint, he looked at Luo Ting as if he was looking at an idiot. Thus, the more irritable and uncontrollable Luo Ting appeared, the more he felt relieved. However, he still had to defend himself verbally. "Young master, I've already said it many times. If the information was leaked, it was definitely not because of me. Is there a problem with your segment? Then could it be that I'm the one with the problem? I know my business the best. Ever since I left the heavenly Luo Daoist sect, I did not meet with anyone, and it's impossible for me to leak the secret. For this matter, besides you, it's me. Those who were involved in this matter have all been killed by you to silence them. Tell me, if the problem does not lie with you, then who?" Black Panther was deeply speechless. At this moment, this Luo Ting was still pushing the blame. Even if Black Panther had not been controlled by Qin Wushuang, surely he would feel extremely depressed when he heard Luo Ting's words. Now, of course, he would not argue with Luo Ting. Instead, he said, "Master, whether it's the truth or not, the truth will come to light. I will go check on Miss Mu Rong's movements. I already sent people to contact Mu Rong Qianji using special methods. Unless he is deliberately hiding, or else he will come." Since the situation had developed to this point, Luo Ting had no other way. Since he could not break through the dispersed Praying Mountain, he must think of a way. Or else, in the end, his plan would not succeed. For Morong Su's side, he could only wait for the news. In other words, he could not do anything on either side. He could only wait at the same place. This made the proud and arrogant Luo Ting feel extremely frustrated. Inside one of the taverns in the Ironwood State City, Little Bamboo was fetching hot water to help Morong Su wash his face and rinse his mouth. Then, she fetched another basin of hot water to wash Murong Su's feet. While Little Bamboo was busy, she asked, "Miss, do you think the news we heard at the Freelance Martial Artist Union is credible?" Murong Su revealed a somewhat worried expression as he stared blankly at the candlelight in the room. He seemed to be thinking about something and did not pay any attention to Little Bamboo's words. Little Bamboo mumbled, "Miss, what are you thinking about?" "She's ignoring Xiao Zhu." Suddenly, Murong Su said, "Little Bamboo, do you remember when we met young Master Qin at the Sky-Breaking City? Well, he mentioned the matter of the Xian Yuan Mound freelance martial artists invading the human countries. He did not finish his words." Little Bamboo thought for a moment and mumbled, "I remember he seemed to have bypassed the topic and did not seem to be willing to talk about this matter in depth." "Miss, what's wrong? Did you discover something wrong?" Murong Su said, "I guess he already knew at that time that Luo Ting was the mastermind behind the entire matter. However, it was inconvenient for him to speak about it before us." "What's inconvenient about it?" Little Bamboo did not think it was a big deal. "If it was me, and I knew it was Luo Ting who did it, I would have exposed him on the spot." "You are you. He is him." Surely young Master Qin felt that since Luo Ting and I had that engagement, he would not be upright if he were to speak ill of Luo Ting before us. For someone as graceful as young Master Qin, certainly he would not talk about others behind their backs. Most likely, he would feel disdain to point out Luo Ting. When Little Bamboo heard up to this point, she also put down the work at hand and thought seriously for a moment. Then, she nodded. "Miss, you don't say it. If you say it this way, it does make sense. Could it be that Luo Ting was the one behind the entire matter?" Apparently, young Master Qin had already grasped this matter. This time, he had chosen to face those freelance martial artists alone at the dispersed praying mountain. Apparently, he had already planned it. Little Bamboo said with some astonishment, "In fact, this young Master Qin is also exceptional. He has improved rapidly. I remember that in less than 2 years, when he was facing Luo Yun of the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect, he was only an ordinary martial artist at the refined void martial stage. The entire Stargaze Palace was helpless against him. Now he could face all those freelance martial artists alone at the dispersed praying mountain. Miss, young Master Qin is truly admirable." A trace of gratified color flashed across Murong Su's starry eyes as she gave a long sigh. Perhaps, in these 2 years, young Master Qin had another fortuitous opportunity. Just like when he was in the human countries, ever since he had stepped onto the path of martial arts, it seems that people have gotten used to the surprises he brings. Little Bamboo said with a chuckle, "Miss, I heard that there's a type of genius that is truly blessed by the gods. Do you think this young Master Qin is this type?" "I hope so." There was a trace of expectation in Murong Su's tone, and more than that, she sighed, "The responsibility on his shoulders is too heavy. If one day, young Master Qin is able to help the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan out of their predicament, then he will be another legend of the Xian Yuan Mound. Ha ha, to turn the tide, he is a legendary hero since ancient times." Little Bamboo pursed her lips and smiled. "Miss, can you wait until that time and not get married?" Murong Su did not know whether to laugh or cry. She scolded with a smile. "Girl, what does this have to do with me getting married?" Yes, yes. Little Bamboo said seriously, "I know that if you don't like a man, you will never get married." Murong Su said with a smile, "Sly girl, I am too lazy to talk to you." As soon as she had finished speaking, suddenly, the expression on Murong Su's face changed slightly. She made a hand gesture to Little Bamboo and asked her to hide behind her. Almost at the same time, a gentle breeze swept over from the windowsill. A voice emerged from nowhere. "Miss Murong, who are you?" Murong Su was not afraid as she asked calmly. "Don't ask me who I am. I will only tell you that Luo Ting already knows about your whereabouts. He already sent someone to inform your father and forced him to take you back to the floating snow house. If you don't want to get married to that guy Luo Ting, then tomorrow morning, leave this place as soon as possible. Go as far as you can." Murong Su's heart sank. Luo Ting is in the Ironwood State City. That voice said coldly, "Don't ask so much. It will not benefit you if you know too much. However, Murong Su was extremely persistent as she asked persistently, "Answer me, is Luo Ting in the Ironwood State City or not?" To Murong Su, this question was more important than anything else. "Ah, what good will it do you to know these things?" That voice gave a desolate sigh. This way, that piece of news from the Freelance Martial Artists Union was not created without wind, right? Murong Su continued to ask, "Miss Murong, even if you know the truth, what about it? Can you deal with Luo Ting? Can you find the evidence to expose him?" That's right, behind the whole thing, it was a scheme that Luo Ting came up with to deal with Qin Wuxuan. However, at the moment, there is only one person who can expose this scheme, but it is definitely not you. After saying this, the voice did not waste any more time as it instructed, "If you don't want to be taken back to the floating snow house and be forced to carry out the marriage agreement, leave quickly." After saying this, the voice drifted away like the wind. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 507. This voice sounded like a ghost. Just when Murong Su thought he had left completely, suddenly, she heard another wave of subtle voice. "If Miss Murong does not believe me, you can look out the window tomorrow morning. By that time, everything will be clear." Murong Su felt disappointed and frustrated. This sudden change had caused her to fall into a state of hesitation. Initially, she was heading to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain to meet the Heavenly Emperor and report what had happened at the Dispersed Praying Mountain. She was going to expose these freelance martial artists who had violated the agreement and crossed the border in large groups. However, this voice had told her that Luo Ting already knew her whereabouts. He was using this to threaten her father. If she continued to move forward, most likely she would meet her father on the way. In that case, it would put her father in a dilemma. However, if she did not do anything halfway, the fate of the human countries would become a hidden danger. And Qin Wuxuan's family and sect would bear the brunt. This was something that Murong Su did not wish to see. "Miss, is that Luo Ting really this bad?" Little Bamboo's voice was much lower than before. Her pair of eyes looked around, and apparently, she was frightened as if she was afraid that Luo Ting would suddenly come out from the corner. No wonder Murong Su was a daughter of a wealthy family. She was used to seeing big scenes. Although she was hesitant inwardly, she did not lose her composure. She only thought, "Who is the person that warned me? He said that Luo Ting is at the Ironwood State City. I wonder if it's true?" However, that voice had spoken with a serious tone and claimed that she would see the truth tomorrow morning. Since this was the case, Murong Su did not think too much about it and said to Little Bamboo, "Little Bamboo, don't worry. This person does not have bad intentions. It seems that from the moment we entered the Ironwood State City, this person had noticed us." However, Little Bamboo said, "Miss, you have always lived in seclusion at the floating snow house. There are many people who know you. This person knows that you're Miss Murong. For sure he knows you. Could he be young Master Qin's subordinate?" Murong Su shook her head. "Definitely not. If it's young Master Qin, he would not send his subordinates to do this. It's not his style." "That's right. Young Master Qin is very upright. It's not like he's shameful. If he really wanted to tell young Miss about this, he would definitely reveal his identity." When Xiaozhu said this, she suddenly said, "Miss, do you think it could be Master's confidant who has been secretly protecting us?" Murong Su laughed involuntarily. "Girl, you're really indulging in fantasy. Then who could it be?" Xiaozhu rested her chin on her hand as she muttered to herself with a frown on her face. Murong Su said, "Since that man said tomorrow morning, we can see what's going on. Could it be that he could predict that Luo Ting would definitely pass by here tomorrow? If that was the case, this person's actions were even stranger. The only person who would know of Luo Ting's whereabouts should be someone close to him." Xiaozhu was even more confused. She sighed and said, "Miss, don't think about it anymore. My head is buzzing. Let's see the results tomorrow morning." "Lady, if all this is true, then are you still going to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain?" This was a realistic question. However, There was not a trace of hesitation on Murong Su's face. She looked at the boundless night sky with determination and said with a tone that left no room for doubt, "Yes, we must go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain." Xiaozhu also said, "Yes, miss. I feel that since we've decided, we must do it." "Ha, miss. In fact, I rather hope that Luo Ting is the one who planned this matter." "Oh." Murong Su was stunned. "Look, if Luo Ting is the one who planned this, then even if he does not die, he would lose a layer of skin. By that time, most likely he would become the public enemy of the freelance martial artist world. The best result would be that the Heavenly Emperor would become furious and imprison him in the sinful hell of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain." The sinful hell of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain was a place that specialized in imprisoning serious criminals. Since Xiao Zhu, a little girl without any scheming mind, held such a huge grudge against Luo Ting, clearly she hated him to the extreme. Of course, the person who had come to inform Murong Su was Black Panther. Black Panther had never thought that a day ago he was still advising Murong Su on how to deal with Murong Su. A day later, he had no choice but to inform Murong Su. Of course, the change in attitude was greatly related to the change in his position. Since he no longer worked for Luo Ting, of course he would not allow Murong Su to fall into Luo Ting's evil claws. This was also Black Panther's way of showing his loyalty to Qin Wuxuan. When he returned to Luo Ting's side, Luo Ting asked when he saw Black Panther had returned, "What? Is there any movement over there?" Black Panther frowned and said, "Young master, the current situation is extremely difficult. Around the place where Miss Murong lives, there are a few unknown elite warriors. I am worried that these unknown people are related to those people at the dispersed praying mountain." Up until now, Luo Ting had not heard any good news. He could not help but grit his teeth with hatred. "Black Panther, can't you bring a slightly more encouraging news?" Black Panther pretended to speak with a fearful tone. "Young master, I think that now is not the time to beat the grass and scare the snake." Luo Ting said while gritting his teeth, "Not the time to beat the grass and scare the snake. Must we wait for that B*TCH to slip away before we go find her? Black Panther, if you let this B*TCH escape from our sight, then do as you see fit." Black Panther said helplessly, "Young master, I've already done my best, if you are still worried. Tomorrow morning, you can go check it out yourself." Luo Ting said angrily, "I already said earlier that I would go, and you made all sorts of excuses. Now, you wanted to go check it out myself. Just how did you do your job? Since young master has doubts about this subordinate's ability, what else can this subordinate say? It will be most reassuring for young master to go check it out yourself." Luo Ting looked at Black Panther coldly. His eyes were filled with coldness. Apparently, he was extremely dissatisfied with Black Panther's rebuttal. However, Black Panther was incomparably calm. He shouted in his heart, "Brat, if you want to fall out with me, then go ahead. If you fall out with me, then I will take this opportunity to announce your conspiracy to the world." The coldness in Luo Ting's eyes slowly faded away after a long while. Waving his hand, he shouted, "You can leave. I want to be alone for a while." Black Panther retreated somewhat disappointedly. He was actually waiting for Luo Ting to explode. Only by finding a good point of conflict and angering Luo Ting could he create the best opportunity to do so. Black Panther's disappointment towards Luo Ting had reached the peak. He did not want to be entangled with Luo Ting for even a minute. If possible, he hoped that Qin Wuxuan would immediately take action and eliminate this self-righteous fellow. Out of sight, out of mind. During this period of time, he had enough of Luo Ting's face. Early the next morning, Black Panther came to Luo Ting's door. "Young master, if you want to go check it out yourself, now is the best time. Otherwise, she would have left the city." Black Panther reminded. Luo Ting said angrily, "I don't need you to remind me. I know what to do. You should think of a way to get rid of those thorns in the dispersed praying mountain." When he said here, suddenly, Luo Ting remembered that he did not even know where Murong Su was staying. Instantly, he shouted again, "Get ready, lead the way." Everything was within Black Panther's calculations. After they left the Freelance Martial Artist Union, Black Panther took Luo Ting and walked towards the inn where Murong Su was staying. Since dawn, Murong Su had been guarding by the window. When Black Panther appeared on the long street with Luo Ting, Murong Su trembled slightly and immediately hid behind the window. She leaned against the wall and started to breathe rapidly. A trace of disgust could not help but flash across her eyes. That was definitely Luo Ting. She would not be mistaken. Luo Ting's unique, arrogant temperament and his self-righteous attitude could not be imitated by others. Missy, Little Bamboo, was about to speak. However, Murong Su made a hand gesture to motion her to not make a sound. On the long street, Black Panther took Luo Ting and stopped at the door of an inn on the opposite street. After Black Panther had walked in, he walked out and said a few words to Luo Ting with a somewhat solemn expression. Luo Ting's expression changed drastically. "She left?" Black Panther said with frustration. "Yes, I asked. She just left. Young master, don't worry. I sent people to keep an eye on her. Wherever she goes, she will not leave our sight." Furious, Luo Ting glared at Black Panther. He walked into that inn and asked the waiter, "You have 2 young girls staying at your inn?" "Yes, sir. Do you know those 2 Missy?" TSK. Those 2 Missy. We have never seen girls with such good looks at the Orderly Mountain Prefecture. Luo Ting glared. "Then when did they leave?" "It's been a while, right?" That waiter scratched his head, thought for a moment, and said, "If they left quickly enough, most likely they would be out of the city gate, haha." Luo Ting smashed his fist on the counter and walked out in large strides. Without looking at Black Panther, he walked towards the direction of the Freelance Martial Artist Association. As Black Panther looked at Luo Ting's back, a trace of a strange smile spilled out from the corner of his mouth. He knew that this Luo Ting was truly angry. When this person was angry, his brain would become hot. Once his brain became hot, he would be much easier to deal with. Naturally, all of this, including the shopkeeper of this into the waiter, were Black Panther's eyes and connections in the Ironwood State City. These were the methods of Black Panther, a freelance martial artist. It would be as easy as turning his hand if he wanted to scheme against Luo Ting. Luo Ting and Black Panther returned to the inn one after another. Just as Luo Ting approached the entrance of the association, a person bumped out. When he brushed past Luo Ting, his shoulder just happened to lightly bump into Luo Ting's shoulder. Luo Ting's mood was not good. He scolded loudly. "Bastard, don't you have eyes?" That person flew into a rage, but after sizing up Luo Ting's face for a moment, he had an expression of disbelief and shouted, "Young Master Luo Ting. Isn't this young Master Luo Ting? Sai, it's really you. Young Master Luo Ting, I'm your admirer. I didn't expect to see young Master Luo Ting in this kind of small place." What a surprise. The man was still chattering away. Luo Ting was simply baffled, but in his heart, he sucked in a breath of cold air. He seemed to have realized that he seemed to have been schemed against by someone. His whole body seemed to have fallen into a trap that he could not extricate himself from. It made him feel that his whole body and his skin felt numb. It was simply like seeing a ghost, a freelance martial artist that he did not know actually exposed his identity. With this roar, everyone in the entire hall of the association looked over. Hundreds of pairs of eyes locked onto Luo Ting's face at the same time, making Luo Ting wish that he could wear a mask and find a place to hide. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 508. And Black Panther, who was standing outside the hall, looked at Luo Ting's embarrassed state with an indifferent face. From the corner of his eyes, there was a trace of crafty smile that no one could detect. Without a doubt, all of this had come from Black Panther's ingenious arrangement. Since this Luo Ting did not treat him as a human, it was the right thing. Black Panther did not need to care about their past relationship and would not care about Luo Ting's feelings. Currently, Black Panther was only loyal to one master. and that was Qin Wushuang. What he needed to do now was to drag Luo Ting out from the dark without exposing himself. As long as Luo Ting was exposed, the progress of the entire matter would not be far from the truth. This strategy was extremely vicious. Not only would it drag Luo Ting out, it would also clear his relationship with Black Panther. It would allow Luo Ting to not know how he had been exposed after being sold. Indeed, Luo Ting would die upon seeing the light. 2 days ago, these freelance martial artists had just heard the rumors about how Luo Ting had framed Qin Wushuang. At this moment, these rumors were spreading like a ruckus. At this time, Luo Ting's sudden appearance would make that rumor appear extremely credible. Indeed, although Luo Ting was gnashing his teeth with hatred inwardly, it was not convenient for him to act out. He suppressed his anger and glared at that baffled freelance martial artist. Did you recognize the wrong person? Luo Ting was not an idiot. He knew that if he flew into a rage, it would make it more conspicuous. Thus, he pretended to be confused and wanted to deal with it. Unexpectedly, that person was extremely mischievous, as if he had grasped Luo Ting's weakness of not daring to use force. He grabbed Luo Ting and said with his spittle flying, "How could I see it wrong? I would never see it wrong. Young Master Luo Ting, did you forget? 2 years ago, at that gathering of young talents at the Lion King's mansion, you were in the limelight and won many martial arts competitions. At that time, us freelance martial artists admired you." Of course, the matter spoken by this person was true. That assembly from 2 years ago had caused a sensation at the Xian Yuan Mount, although most freelance martial artists did not have the chance to watch it. However, this person's voice made people think of it. Luo Ting's heart sank. Could it be this guy truly knows me? He turned around to look behind him and hoped Black Panther would come to help him out. Black Panther tactfully walked over and pretended to push the person away. "Friend, you've got the wrong person." When that person saw Black Panther, he screamed and then laughed. "You got the wrong person? Haha, if I recognize the wrong person, I will dig out my eyeballs and give them to you. 2 years ago, weren't you by young Master Luo Ting's side? You're his subordinate. I remember that." As soon as these words were spoken, the entire hall was in an uproar. If one person was mistaken, it was impossible for both of them to be mistaken, right? Black Panther looked at Luo Ting in embarrassment. Luo Ting pushed that person away and said fiercely, "Next time, remember to look at people more clearly." That person continued to blabber on and argued. "I've already seen it clearly." Luo Ting did not know if this person was doing it on purpose or if there was something wrong with his brain. At this critical juncture, anyone with a slightly normal brain would know that he was unwilling to reveal his identity. But this guy insisted on arguing, not knowing how to be flexible at all. Luo Ting's evil thoughts grew in his guts. He took one step closer, thinking that he would quietly end this man's life. Black Panther watched from the side with a pair of cold eyes. When he saw Luo Ting's temperament, he knew that he was about to explode. Since he had found someone to act, of course Black Panther would not let the actor lose his life. Immediately, he rushed up and pushed that person away viciously. "Get lost. I already said you saw it wrong. Why are you still talking so much? Get lost as far as you can." That person rolled on the ground like a gourd and was pushed to the corner of the hall. He crawled up by the foot of the wall and shouted as he walked, "What's so great about being an offspring of a venerable family? Aren't you just born with a good background? Why do you have to bully people like this? I must have been blind to admire hypocrites like you." Huh. At this time, instantly, the hall became noisy. Apparently, everyone was dissatisfied with Luo Ting's bullying behavior. Someone even said coldly, "It seems that the rumors in these few days were not without wind." Everyone, tell me, why did this offspring of a venerable family come to such a remote place? As soon as this person spoke, someone on the side immediately started to jeer. Yes, the young master of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect is high and mighty. He came here to hide with us, a group of poor freelance martial artists. He doesn't even dare to show his face. There must be a trap here. Bang! A guy with a bad temper even slammed his fist on the table. Darn it! If that Qin clan does not have a divine treasure, and someone made it up, even if he is an offspring of a venerable family, I will not let him off. Isn't that right? They are clearly tricking us to our deaths. 2 of my brothers died at the dispersed praying mountain. We must settle this debt. Everyone in the hall spoke one after another. All of their words were targeted. At this time, suddenly, someone said, "You with the surname Luo, if you're truly an offspring of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect and do not dare to admit it, then you are a coward. You have lost the face of the sect. If you are a man, don't hide it. If you're not Luo Ting, then who are you? Which prefecture did he come from? Which territory did he belong to? Say it, someone will know you. If you cannot say it, then you are Luo Ting. If you are Luo Ting, why do you not dare to admit your identity?" The logic of these people was clear. Step by step, they were forcing Luo Ting into the abyss. When Black Panther heard these voices, he knew that these people were the spiritual beasts next to Qin Wushuang. Although Luo Ting had a high strength, he did not know what to do when encountering such situation. Instead, he froze on the spot. He only looked at the entire scene with a pair of cold eyes, and inwardly, he was already thinking of a way to retreat. "What's wrong? Can't say anything?" Another guy said coldly. "Are you feeling guilty because you're guilty? Guys, do you have any brothers that died on the way to the human countries? Do you have any friends that were killed at the dispersed praying mountain? If you do, step out. Use our unity to tell them that us freelance martial artists are not that easy to fool. Yes, we must demand an explanation. Speak, who are you? Are you Luo Ting?" After being depressed for such a long time, naturally, these freelance martial artists had accumulated a wave of resentment. Now, they had found an outlet to vent their anger and learned that most likely all their efforts had come from a scheme to fool them. They had used them as weapons to deal with the human countries. When they thought here, the lungs of these freelance martial artists were about to explode from anger. Especially those freelance martial artists whose family and friends had lost their lives in this incident. They were unable to restrain their anger. Anger was also erupting from Luo Ting's chest. Up to this point, he still did not understand how he could be so unlucky. It could be said that it was inexplicable. Inexplicably, someone had seen through his scheme. Inexplicably, a powerful powerhouse had appeared at the dispersed praying mountain to stop the freelance martial artists from crossing the border. Inexplicably, that Murong Su had appeared at the Ironwood State City and suddenly disappeared. Inexplicably, someone had recognized his identity. Luo Ting was so angry that he almost vomited blood. However, he knew that under the public's anger, even if he was a disciple of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect, even if he had superior strength and trump cards, he knew that today's matter could not be solved with martial arts. Instantly, he gave a cold sneer and denied flatly, "A group of lunatics, I don't have time to play with you guys." After he had finished speaking, he walked towards the door of the hall. Since Luo Ting was about to leave, among these freelance martial artists, no one could stop him. However, Luo Ting's departure had confirmed those people's suspicions. All of them cried out, "He has a guilty conscience. He ran away. Despicable. Indeed, none of the venerable offspring are good. Too despicable." He used as freelance martial artists as a spear to deal with Qin Wushuang of the human countries. This person deserves his fiancée to run away from the marriage. He deserves to be unable to marry a wife. Sarcastic words were like a tide, rising and falling one after another, constantly surging over. Naturally, Black Panther would not linger when he saw Luo Ting leaving. He followed Luo Ting and left quickly. When Luo Ting saw Black Panther following him, he said with an annoyed tone, "You stay here. Don't come back to the heavenly Luo Taoist sect to see me before you wipe your butt clean." Black Panther said with a fake tone, "Young master, since the matter has developed to this point, how do you want me to wipe it clean? Since the hole has been poked, it cannot be mended no matter how much I try. Then you better pray for yourself." Luo Ting gave a cold sneer and floated forward like a gust of wind. He did not even look back. Black Panther followed behind him and cried out, "Young master, what do you mean by this?" "What I mean? Make your own guess. Luo Ting said coldly, since you did not handle the matter well, of course you must bear all the consequences. I never left the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. Of course, this matter has nothing to do with me. Ha ha ha. Black Panther's heart sank as he thought. Indeed, this kid would burn the bridge after crossing the river. He was ready to clear his name and use me as a scapegoat. If you are heartless, I will not be righteous. Murderous intentions flashed across Black Panther's eyes as he said coldly, Luo Ting, you forced me to do this. Do you think you can clear your name by sneaking back to the heavenly Luo Taoist sect? Luo Ting said leisurely, I can create 100 kinds of evidence and let everyone in the sect testify that I never left the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. Can you do it? Black Panther kept sneering as he sent his voice. Unfortunately, I am afraid you will not even have the chance to return to the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. Luo Ting, if you die on the road, how can the heavenly Luo Taoist sect create evidence for you? Inwardly, Luo Ting's heart sank, but then he laughed. Black Panther, with your little strength, you want to kill your master? Haha, in your dreams. In the midst of their conversation, Luo Ting had already arrived outside the Ironwood State City. Black Panther followed closely behind him and did not let go of Luo Ting. Luo Ting warned him, Black Panther, if you continue to follow me, I would not mind killing you along the way. Black Panther said coldly, then go ahead and try. Luo Ting knew that in this area, the terrain was not advantageous. If he were to make a move to kill Black Panther here, most likely he would startle those freelance martial artists. By that time, it would be difficult for him to clear his name. He must find a place where no one would know and kill Black Panther. Then, he would push all the blame on a Black Panther. At the crucial moment, Luo Ting was also extremely determined and ruthless. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 509. On the other hand, inside the Freelance Martial Artists Union, those freelance martial artists were still chattering and cursing Luo Ting's despicable actions. Some freelance martial artists who had lost their brothers even cried bitterly. Being martial artists, they were not afraid of death, nor were they greedy for life. However, it was not worth it to die such an unjust death. Because of a rumor, a conspiracy, they had lost their lives for no reason. No one would be able to accept it. Everyone calm down. For this matter, although we are also responsible, the biggest one is Luo Ting, who spread the rumor. If he had not spread the rumor maliciously, how could everyone have gone to the human countries? Yes, this Luo Ting hated Qin Wushuang and did not dare to show himself. Instead, he used us as a tool. For such despicable actions, we cannot let it go. Everyone, let's go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain and sue this Luo Ting. If this Luo Ting does not die, how can we face our dead freelance martial artist brothers? Yes, we cannot afford to offend the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. However, the Heavenly Emperor would never condone such actions that broke the 10,000-year agreement. Everyone, let's go and complain. I say, everyone calm down. Although we were fooled by going to the human countries, they did not force us to go. In the end, we were driven by our greed. We are also responsible. I am afraid that if we go and complain, it would not be justified. This person had stood out to sing a different tune. Bullshit, we did not go to the human countries. Now, we are complaining for those brothers who died at the dispersed praying mountain. Because of their greed, those brothers had lost their lives. This person who spread the rumor must not get away with it, right? That's right. We did not go to the human countries. Why can't we complain? Even for those who had escaped from the dispersed praying mountain, they would not admit that they had been there. Each of them was filled with righteous indignation. Of course, most of these yelling people had lost their friends and family at the dispersed praying mountain. For those unrelated to the matter, although they hated Luo Ting for spreading the rumor, they felt sorry to ask them to complain. It would be impossible. Currently, Qin Wushuang was also hiding in this great hall. He knew that Luo Ting and Black Panther should have left for some time. Immediately, he sent a voice transmission to Ying Long. Ying Long, continue to stay here and bewitch everyone. We must spread Luo Ting's conspiracy as far as possible. Yes, Ying Long replied. Jade Rabbit and Mole, you two cooperate with Ying Long set up a line of defense within 500 li of the Ironwood State City, in case there were rogue cultivators who were unwilling to give up and wanted to continue towards the human countries. Use whatever means you have. Don't let a single one slip through. Yes, Master. Don't worry. Even if it's an expert of the profound void martial stage, the two of us are confident that we can make them nurse a grudge. Sky Pilfered Mole and Moon Palace Jade Hair appeared to be full of confidence. After giving out his instructions, Qin Wushuang brought the three profound void martial stage spirit beasts and quickly left the Ironwood State City. In hot pursuit, Qin Wushuang's purple cloud yin yang wings were so fast that they did not lose out to the speed of a void transformation stage expert. Qin Wushuang urged his speed, and in less than 15 minutes, he had caught up to Black Panther. Qin Wushuang had walked this path not long ago. Naturally, he was familiar with the terrain and knew that this path would lead them to the Black Raven Royal City. On the way to the Black Raven Royal City, there were many remote areas. Initially, Qin Wushuang and Bao Bao had encountered a group of people who were chasing after Qin Guan, an offspring of the 100-Leaf Qin clan. At that time, Qin Wushuang had saved Qin Guan and killed that group of freelance martial artists. Qin Wushuang knew that to kill Luo Ting, that place would be the best place. When he thought here, Qin Wushuang sped up and chased after him. At the same time, he sent his spiritual perception to Black Panther and asked him to stop Luo Ting at that giant canyon. Now, naturally, Black Panther hated Luo Ting to the bone. Of course, he hoped he would die quickly. Without hesitation, he chased after him even more tightly. After about 4 to 6 hours, the terrain gradually became desolate. That Luo Ting's mind also became active. He looked back and saw Black Panther chasing after him closely. In a flash, Luo Ting dropped into the center of the giant canyon. Black Panther also followed him with a cold sneer. At this time, Qin Wushuang had already called out that hissing sky phoenix. The speed of the hissing sky phoenix was as fast as lightning. In a few leaps, he had rushed to the front. Luo Ting only felt a wave of red light rushing before his eyes. A wave of red clouds overflowed from the sky and rushed past him like a tide. A wave of doubt flashed across Luo Ting's mind. He looked at the sky and was somewhat surprised. When the black figure dropped to the ground, Black Panther had already landed on the hillside 3 or 4 miles behind him. With a few leaps, he had scuttled before him. Luo Ting laughed nastily. Black Panther, life is unpredictable. I never thought that between us master and servant, such a day would come. However, do you think that with that bit of cultivation of yours, you can gain any advantage in front of this young master? After he had finished speaking, he laughed wantonly and sized up the surrounding environment. Then he said with a calm and unruffled tone, choosing this place to send you on your way, at least I didn't let you down, right? Black Panther said lightly, Luo Ting, I have seen many offspring of the venerable families. In terms of talent and power, you are not much less than the exceptional offspring of many first-rate powerhouses. However, do you know what is the fatal and hard wound on your body? Luo Ting laughed to the sky. Black Panther, at this time, you still want to mess with my mind? If you think that my mental endurance is as weak as yours, then you are wrong. You are indulging in fantasy if you want to provoke me. Black Panther gave a long sigh and said slowly, at death's door, you still don't know what your fatal weakness is. I might as well tell you. You have the talent of an offspring of the venerable families, and all the advantages of an offspring of the venerable families. However, your fatal weakness is that you are too narrow-minded. For a narrow-minded person, regardless of how high your talent is, you will never reach the peak of the Tian Xian land. A trace of fierce light flashed across Luo Ting's eyes. Although he was already mentally prepared, Black Panther's words still pierced his nerves deeply. Black Panther, perhaps I should give you some strong medicine to make you shut up. Black Panther was not afraid as he sneered. Of course, I cannot kill you. However, it will not be easy for you to kill me. I know that the heavenly Luo Taoist sect has given you some trump cards. However, whether these trump cards can let you leave here alive, it remains to be tested. Luo Ting glanced behind him unintentionally and said with a cold sneer, "If you think that a spiritual beast that flew past here can be your helper to kill me, then you can try." Ha ha ha. Black Panther did not speak anymore and took a step back. It was because he felt that Qin Wushuang had already dropped behind him. Suddenly, Luo Ting's brows moved. Who do you think it should be? Qin Wushuang's voice was as calm as a gust of wind. However, within this calmness, it made Luo Ting feel that endless perilous waves were hidden within. Black Panther, who is he? Luo Ting opened his eyes widely and vividly. He felt a trace of unease. The person that will come to settle accounts with you and take your life. Black Panther said coldly. Luo Ting's eyes lit up as he glared at Black Panther and hissed. Black Panther, it seems that you have already betrayed me. Very good. Tell me, when did it start? Black Panther gave tit for tat. Since the moment you gave up on me. Ha, you slave. Luo Ting swore. I gave up on you? You think you are worthy of me giving up on you? From beginning to end, I only treated you as a dog. I don't need you. I can beat you to death at any time. Do you think that you can bite back at me just because you turn against me? Black Panther said, A mad dog, what's worth biting? Qin Wushuang clapped his hands and laughed. While scolded, a mad dog who's worth biting you? Luo Ting flew into a rage. Kid, what kind of trick is it to hide the head and show the tail? If you have the guts, tell me your name and let me see who you are. Luo Ting, you have been thinking about how to scheme against me day and night. Now that I'm in front of you, why can't you recognize me? Qin Wushuang's gloomy tone obviously contained a monstrous anger. One-horned mystical horse and pure ultra-precious pig also surrounded Luo Ting, sealing off his left and right paths of escape. Luo Ting's eyes flickered with astonishment as his chest heaved up and down. He looked at Qin Wushuang in disbelief and said coldly, Qin Wushuang, Luo Ting. Qin Wushuang calmed down at this moment. The moment their gazes met, sparks of hatred shot out between the two enemies who had never met before. They both had reasons to hate each other. However, at this moment, the reasons were no longer important. What was important was who would leave this place alive. Luo Ting looked at Qin Wushuang coldly and revealed a trace of ridicule from the corner of his mouth. Pitiful ant, if I'm not mistaken, you're only a pitiful worm that has just entered the void martial stage, right? You want to go against the heavenly Luo Taoist sect with just you? Ha ha ha. Luo Ting's tone was full of disdain, as if looking at Qin Wushuang one more time was a great favor to Qin Wushuang. Listen well, Luo Ting. From the first moment when the heavenly Luo Taoist sect started to chase after me, I made a great wish. Until the end of my life, if I do not flatten the heavenly Luo Taoist sect, I am not a human. And you, Luo Ting, will be the sacrificial flag for my war against the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. Luo Ting laughed, and of course, he was still extremely disdainful. Qin, you only achieved some laughable results in the human countries. Do you think you can run amok in the Xian Yuan Mound? In the eyes of the Xian Yuan Mound, the so-called genius of the human countries is only a jumping clown. Pitiful ant. Let me show you the true meaning of being powerful. When he said these words, Luo Ting initiated the temperament from his entire body. Like a rainbow, a stream of air soared to the sky from Luo Ting's body. The color of this wave of air was strange, as it was red to the point of almost appearing purple. Inside this purple light, Luo Ting's entire body was quickly wrapped by a layer of light scale armor. This scale armor seemed to be a set of armor as it wrapped around his body. Luo Ting grabbed with both hands and pulled out an incomparably resplendent curved blade. Behind the scimitar's hilt, there was a long chain that seemed to be there, but not there. Master, you must be careful of his weapon. Black Panther sent his voice. Of course, Qin Wushuang would not neglect him. He made a hand gesture, and the three spiritual beasts surrounded Luo Ting from three different directions. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 510. Although Luo Ting had fallen into a tight encirclement, inwardly he was not afraid. There was the so-called saying of a person with great skill being bold. Being an elite warrior at the profound void martial stage, Luo Ting also possessed many trump cards. It allowed him to remain calm when facing such a situation. He also saw that the three spiritual beasts that had surrounded him were all at the profound void martial stage. If it were a head-on battle, despite his high strength, Luo Ting would not be a match for them. However, Luo Ting had the trump cards bestowed to him by the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. Inwardly, he was confident. For these trump cards, even Black Panther would not know about them. Qin Wushuang, did you know? In a forbidden spiritual zone, like the Xian Yuan Mound, everyone loves to laugh at the same joke. This joke is your human countries. Each time I see the mole crickets and crickets of your human countries trying everything to climb to a higher position, yet in the end, they are too weak to stand up against the wind in the forbidden spiritual zone. Do you understand that kind of laughable feeling? Of course, Qin Wushuang knew that this Luo Ting felt good about himself. In his eyes, the people of the human countries were no different than mole crickets and insects. On this point, Qin Wushuang had fully experienced it when he had listened to the conversation between Luo Ting and Black Panther at the Wild Flame Cliff. Of course, he did not find it strange when he heard his words. He knew that Luo Ting wanted to provoke Qin Wushuang and wanted to see the hysterical side of Qin Wushuang. This way, inwardly, Luo Ting would feel more satisfied and superior. However, for Qin Wushuang, who had been tempered into steel, currently, his will was as firm as a rock. For Luo Ting's little tricks, it was as if a breeze had brushed past his ears without leaving the slightest trace. Qin Wushuang, it's not that I want to attack you. In my eyes, you are a toad at the bottom of the well. In the world you saw, you thought you were strong enough. However, to speak the truth, when you jumped onto the fence of the well, if you still don't know how big the sky is and don't know how to hide in that space the size of the well, then it's your fault. Do you think Morong Su fell in love with you at first sight just because he chatted with you? Do you think you can get the same favor in the forbidden lands of God just because you are supported by those vulgar women in the human countries? Let me tell you, a toad will always be a toad. No matter how low a swan flies, it can only satisfy your eyes. Luo Ting talked nonstop. These words were no longer as simple as just provoking Qin Wushuang. In fact, he was also venting his resentment. Not only did he resent Qin Wushuang, but he also resented Morong Su. Qin Wushuang listened to his endless chatter and simply disdained to argue. He only indifferently said, Luo Ting, looks like Miss Morong running away from the marriage and choosing not to marry you is not a decision made on impulse, but a very wise decision. I think it's very strange. In my life, I also have a few people who I hate very much. They are my enemies. However, at least in them, I can more or less see some shining points. For the benefit of the sect, for the benefit of the country, for kinship, for friendship, they went against me and became my enemy. In the end, they died in my hands, so I did not lose some respect. However, what makes me surprised is that on you, there is actually nothing good about them. Qin Wushuang's words were like knives, stabbing into Luo Ting's heart. Luo Ting shook his chain knife and said with an evil grin, Qin Wushuang, don't tell me that this is the so-called jealousy, but the fate of being born lowly, in the end, cannot be changed. This is your fate. You can only look up to my existence forever. You will always be a pitiful worm with jealousy and envy. Luo Ting felt very good about himself. His chain knife flashed in front of his eyes and twisted into 3 circles. 3 perfect arcs, like a dragon spiraling in the sky, whistling as it came. The knife was like a crescent moon, shining brightly. Under the sunlight, It shot out tens of thousands of knife lights, shooting over. At this moment, pure ultra-precious pig's body, which was as big as Mount Tai, strode forward. His two fat hands grabbed the air. A spiral airflow, like a Tai Chi, condensed between his hands. Like the attraction force of a magnet to metal, those tens of thousands of knife lights were sucked in by this airflow. They attached themselves to the airflow and spun rapidly. Outside this airflow, sharp sawtooth-like lights kept growing and spinning at high speed. Pure ultra-precious pig shouted, "Go!" The entire airflow formed a cyclone, like a huge hidden weapon, directly blasted toward Luo Ting. Luo Ting saw pure ultra-precious pig skill and was somewhat impressed. However, after all, Luo Ting was not someone who had never seen a big battle. Seeing the sawtooth-like sharp lights around the cyclone, like flying gears, a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. His body soared into the sky. His aura was like a dragon flying in the sky. His chain knife suddenly trembled like a long knife. He straightened his hands and slashed the knife in the air. This Luo Ting unexpectedly wanted to meet force with force. Crash! When the blade cut into the cyclone, it was like a knife cutting into a watermelon. It was cut into two halves on the spot. This cyclone was cut open. The airflow dissipated and immediately turned into countless small airflows, shooting in all directions. The dust on the ground was stirred up, the surrounding plants were destroyed, and the grass and leaves danced in the air. Luo Ting let out a long laugh. "Qin Wushuang, is your ability to hide behind these spirit beasts and pretend to be weak? If you have the ability, come and fight with me face to face. If you can block 3 of my moves, I, Luo Ting, will let bygones be bygones. How about it?" Qin Wushuang's heart was as calm as still water. He turned a deaf ear to Luo Ting's provocation. Qin Wushuang was not a hot-headed person. With his void refining martial stage cultivation base, if he were to confront the enemy face to face with Luo Ting, who was at the profound void martial stage, unless his brain was damaged, he would not do this. With Qin Wushuang's temperament, naturally, he would not be disturbed by these few words. "Luo Ting, put away your childish provocation. If I were you, I would think about how to escape with my life, instead of flaunting your so-called advantage of words." Qin Wushuang disdained Luo Ting and said indifferently. Luo Ting was about to reply when he suddenly felt a burst of fire burning half of the sky behind him. Then a boiling heat wave, as if a furnace in the sky was pouring down fire, rolled forward. Luo Ting turned around and saw a fire dragon rolling over, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. It was like a long rainbow streaking across the sky with an extremely magnificent aura. As this fire dragon spiraled, it seemed to have a divine sense. It directly coiled around Luo Ting's body and kept rolling. This fire dragon was obviously spat out by the hissing sky phoenix. It was not a real dragon. Because of this, the body of this fire dragon seemed to be able to stretch infinitely. Like a rope, it kept rolling in the air as if it wanted to use this tyrannical fire to lock Luo Ting's life. Luo Ting laughed and rolled his body at a rapid speed. On his body, the purple light congealed into a ball. Instantly, the scales on his entire body glistened and dazzled the eyes. All of a sudden, countless star-like rays of light shot out from the surface of the scales. They were dazzling and dazzling as they rushed out. Like tens of thousands of concealed weapons, these specks of starlight formed a wave of expanding power that spread outwards. It formed waves of ripples that spread outwards. As soon as this expanding power rushed out, it had shattered those waves of fire into pieces. They turned into countless tiny flames and fell down. Twice in a row, this Luo Ting had broken the 2 killing moves of pure, ultra-precious pig and hissing sky phoenix with extreme ease. Inwardly, Black Panther had mixed feelings. He knew that Luo Ting's methods were superior. Now, when he saw Luo Ting's display of invincible power vividly, he was also worried. If he could not take out Luo Ting today, there would be no end of trouble in the future. Once Luo Ting escaped back to the heavenly Luo Daoist sect, the elite warriors he could mobilize would cause the entire Xian Yuan Mound, besides the heavenly Emperor Mountain, to tremble. Once the giant figure of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect was activated, the power it would produce would be terrifying. Qin Wushuang, I must admit that you are somewhat lucky to have found these spiritual beasts that are willing to risk their lives for you. Now, Luo Ting had to reevaluate Qin Wushuang's strength. However, the gap between you and me is innate. Luck alone was not enough to make up for it. Now I will show you my true strength. When Luo Ting said here, he wrapped the chain blade around his arm. In a flash, he had disappeared into the sky. When an elite warrior of the profound void stage merged into the sky, he only borrowed the airflow to form a form of visual concealment. To put it bluntly, it was still a camouflage. It was not because he was not in this sky. Only elite warriors of the exquisite mysterious boundary could shatter the sky and extract themselves from the space. It was miraculous. Suddenly, with a flash of light in the sky to the south, Luo Ting's figure reappeared and escaped into the sky. In the next moment, the sky to the north flashed again, and Luo Ting's body dropped to the north. Qin Wushuang knew that this Luo Ting was trying to show off his skills. At the moment, he did not dare to neglect. With a graceful spiritual bow in his hand, his mind was as calm as still water. He did not spread out his spiritual perception deliberately and only guarded the surrounding 300 meters. One-horned mystical horse gave a roar and shouted, "Master, watch me for this little trick." The mystical horse kicked with both legs, and suddenly his body stood up like a human. The horn on his forehead emitted a strange light. Suddenly, the horn started to sink into his forehead. In the blink of an eye, that horn had completely shrunk into his forehead. Suddenly, the flesh on his forehead flipped, and at the location of the horn, a giant eyeball that was much bigger than an ordinary eye appeared. When this eyeball shot towards the sky, it shot out a wave of golden light. Once this golden light shot out, it emitted a dazzling light. Instantly, the sky was illuminated into nothingness. Even a speck of dust had nowhere to hide and appeared so clear. Not here. One-horned mystical horse's eyelids moved extremely fast. He scanned in all directions and shot the entire sky. After shooting 3 or 4 times, Luo Ting's figure was captured by this golden light. No matter how he flew, he was unable to escape from the illumination of this golden light. Qin Wushuang was overjoyed at this unexpected good news. One horn, keep tracking. With a graceful spiritual bow in his hand and the illumination of the golden light from one horn, it formed a perfect trajectory and formed the best shooting route. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 511. The golden light from the horn shot out at an extremely fast speed, but Luo Ting's movement speed was not slow either. Being chased by the golden light, Luo Ting fled in all directions. Unexpectedly, the golden light could only hit him for a moment, but it was unable to lock him in place. When Qin Wushuang was about to shoot with a graceful spiritual bow, he realized that Luo Ting had already deviated from the trajectory. It was the same for a few times. Qin Wushuang was not discouraged, and the graceful spiritual bow still maintained its shooting mode. Although Luo Ting could dodge, he felt as if there was a blade at his back, because he had heard that Qin Wushuang had an extremely powerful weapon, and it was precisely this graceful spiritual bow. It was said that it could kill people of a higher level. Regarding the power of this bow and arrow, Luo Ting did not dare to lower his guard. Although he had the protective scale armor, and his defensive power was indeed nature-defying. But if that bow and arrow were truly a divine Tao weapon, even if he had the purple scale armor, he would still not be able to block it. Therefore, although Luo Ting was proud, he would never dare to resist the graceful spiritual bow. Ever since Qin Wushuang possessed the graceful spiritual bow, he had never met anyone who dared to resist the graceful spiritual bow head-on. Therefore, he absolutely believed that Luo Ting would also not dare to face this graceful spiritual bow. Seeing him leap in the air like this, although it seemed fancy, it was actually a display of cowardice. Luo Ting was also furious in his heart, although it was only a short exchange of blows. What surprised him was that under such a situation, not only did he not gain any advantage, but he had also unknowingly fallen into a disadvantageous position. These three great spirit beasts were all at the profound void martial stage when ganging up on him. And these profound void martial stage martial artists all had their own divine abilities. These divine abilities actually made him feel that his hands and feet were bound, and it was extremely uncomfortable, especially that Gai Qin Wushuang, who was holding a bow from afar. That kind of potential threat to him made him feel extremely uncomfortable. Luo Ting had never dreamed that Qin Wushuang, whom he had always looked down upon, would actually make him feel uncomfortable. His heart was filled with an indescribable anger. However, when he launched the charge just now, he realized that it was impossible for the three spirit beasts to let him get close to Qin Wushuang and attack him one-on-one. If he was unable to launch a one-on-one attack against Qin Wushuang, Luo Ting simply had no chance of success in breaking out of today's situation. To say that he could defeat three profound void stage spirit beasts by himself was simply a fool's dream. Thinking of this, Luo Ting already had some plans in mind. Since there was no chance of victory, today's situation was not suitable to continue fighting. Killing Qin Wushuang had always been the most tempting thing for him. But as the saying goes, the pressure of the situation is greater than the person. Once he fell into a tight encirclement, even if he had some trump cards, but if three void interpretation stage martial artists were to risk their lives against him at the same time, the situation would still be extremely disadvantageous to him. Thinking of this, Luo Ting suddenly dived down from midair and rushed towards the ground. At this time, the pure ultra-precious pig, who had been waiting underground, roared. With a loud roar, he opened his ferocious mouth, and a powerful suction force immediately welcomed Luo Ting. As soon as this suction force spurted out, the yellow sand on the ground was immediately lifted up. A very pungent, fishy smell soared up to the sky and greeted Luo Ting. Although Luo Ting was exceptional, but suddenly his entire dantian was tossed and turned, and even his primordial spirit was almost sucked out. His blood surged. Luo Ting was indeed exceptional. Even in such a situation, he did not forget to hack down with the chain knife in his hand, and his body forcefully twisted and rushed up to midair. He was originally rushing downwards, but in an instant, he changed to rushing upwards. It was equivalent to his entire body suddenly making a 180-degree turn. This kind of sudden and rapid change of direction had an extremely great impact on his body. Just when he was lucky enough to rush out, the hissing sky phoenix in midair almost arrived at the same time. The feathers on its back rapidly contracted. With a flick, it instantly shot out hundreds of flaming feather arrows. These feather arrows were clearly a part of the hissing sky phoenix's body. Shot out with the primordial spirit, the power could be said to be astonishingly great. Luo Ting did not even have time to breathe. How could he have time to dodge? Without any time to react, he could only urge with all his strength. The purple scale armor once again shot out an extremely dazzling light. Qin Wushuang saw the opportunity and knew that Luo Ting was already prepared to resist. With a thought, he made a prompt decision and suddenly shot out the graceful spiritual bow. The soaring green light was still so familiar, but every time it was shot out, Qin Wushuang felt a throbbing feeling from the depths of his heart. The power of this graceful spiritual bow, the enormous energy contained within the graceful spiritual bow, made Qin Wushuang, the owner, feel that it was endless. Just like a huge treasure house, it made Qin Wushuang feel that it had unlimited potential to be excavated. Although Luo Ting was resisting the attacks of the hissing sky phoenix in the middle of the air, he had been keeping an eye on Qin Wushuang's movements with his mental power. The instant he saw Qin Wushuang raise his arm slightly, he knew of Qin Wushuang's ambition. Without making any reaction, he made a hand gesture, and instantly, a simple and unadorned spiritual talisman was activated. Instantly, a wave of white smoke spread out in the middle of the air. Amidst this smoke, Luo Ting's body had already turned into a long rainbow and dashed away with the help of the white light. This guy's escaping. One-horned mystical horse reacted immediately and chased after that white light at a fast speed. Luo Ting's escape had covered at least a few hundred miles, and he did not leave behind any traces when he used the escape technique. If one-horned mystical horse did not have the tracking skill, he would not have been able to find the direction of Luo Ting's escape. Naturally, he would not have been able to chase after him. This Luo Ting was the most prized disciple of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. Many of the equipment he carried were unattainable by the younger generation. Thus, during the battle, regardless of fighting or retreating, he had enough capital. It was also the reason why Luo Ting could still talk cheerfully and wittily when he was trapped in a tight encirclement. However, Luo Ting did not expect that the opponents he had encountered were not ordinary opponents. Each of the 12 spiritual beasts inside these 12 sealed scrolls had extraordinary strength. Most importantly, each of these spiritual beasts had their own unique divine skills. These skills had restrained Luo Ting's trump cards from all aspects and prevented him from unleashing 100% of his trump cards. With this consumption, Luo Ting had already fallen into a disadvantageous position. One-horned mystical horse took the lead and called out, "Follow me." Pure altar precious pig showed a long face. "Another battle in the air? Don't you know that I'm not good at flying in the air?" Hissing Sky Phoenix called out, "Fat pig, I cannot carry you. Don't expect me to carry you." Initially, although this pure, ultra-precious pig had a gigantic body, he could also fly in the air. However, in terms of flying speed, he was far behind Hissing Sky Phoenix and One-Horned Mystical Horse. He could only unleash his maximum speed on land. Hearing Hissing Sky Phoenix's words, he was very dejected. Qin Wushuang heard him and called out, "Precious pig, I will bring you away. Let's go to the sealed scrolls first." With a move of the sealed scrolls, Precious Pig was summoned in. Qin Wushuang spread out his wings and followed One-Horned Mystical Horse's identity and chased over quickly. On the other hand, Luo Ting used the escape technique and escaped a few hundred miles away. His speed was very fast as he dashed forward. This was the most dangerous battle that Luo Ting had encountered since his debut. Under the siege of 3 spiritual beasts of the profound void martial stage, Luo Ting also felt that he could not bear it. Recalling the situation where Qin Wushuang aimed at him with his bow and arrow, Luo Ting was even more furious. He swore in his heart, "Qin Wushuang, if I don't exterminate your 9 generations, I am not a human." While urging his speed, he took out a piece of jade token. This was a special spiritual sense jade token, which was made of special materials. Through this jade token, even if he was 10,000 miles away, he could send his spiritual sense to the person he wanted to send it to. A few 100,000 miles away at the heavenly Luo Taoist sect, inside a deep mountain cave, the head Tao warrior of the sect, Luo Tongtian, suddenly opened his eyes. He held a piece of dark green jade token in his hand. When he rubbed it, the scene of Luo Ting flying in the sky appeared. "Luo Ting." Luo Tongtian frowned. "What's going on?" Luo Ting sent his spiritual sense through the jade token. "Head Tao warrior, 3 profound void martial stage warriors are chasing after me." 3 spiritual beasts of the profound void martial stage? Inwardly, the head Tao warrior's heart sank. "Where are you now?" Recently, the head Tao warrior had been in solitary training and did not know that Luo Ting was outside. Thus, for the time being, he did not know where Luo Ting was. Luo Ting said, "Head Tao warrior, I am at the Orderly Mountain Prefecture. Soon, I will enter the territory of the Judge Mountain Prefecture." "Who is chasing after you?" the head Tao warrior asked in a low voice. "It's Qin Wushuang, that nobody from the human countries." I don't know what kind of luck he has. He has 3 spiritual beasts at the profound void martial stage that listen to him. Head Tao warrior, please send elite warriors to receive me. Inwardly, Luo Ting no longer had his previous arrogance. After experiencing the power of the 3 spiritual beasts at the profound void martial stage, especially after experiencing the power of Qin Wushuang's arrows, Luo Ting no longer had his previous arrogance. What replaced it was a deep fear. He knew that once he was surrounded again, the other party would use all their strength to kill him and make his situation even more difficult. When he had used all his trump cards, the situation would become even more difficult. Thus, now was not the time to talk about his status. He must shake off the pursuers. As long as the elite warriors of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect came to receive him, everything would be fine. As long as he killed Qin Wushuang, he would guide all public opinion. Even if he had to find a scapegoat in the end, he could push all the blame on a Black Panther. Although the head Tao warrior was dissatisfied with Luo Ting leaving the heavenly Luo Taoist sect, Luo Ting was the #1 successor of the sect. Of course, it would not be good if something happened to him in the outside world. Immediately, he said, run at full speed towards the sect. When encountering danger, do not hold back on those trump cards. Only prioritize your own life, understand? Of course, there was no need to say this. At this crucial moment, of course Luo Ting knew that his little life was more important than anything else. He nodded and said, I understand. Please send reinforcements. This communication jade plate consumed a great deal of spiritual perception. Luo Ting was unwilling to use too much of it, as it would affect his escape. At the moment, he did not speak anymore and withdrew his spiritual perception. Once again, he dashed forward like a stray dog. Like a fish that had escaped the net, he appeared to be in a sorry state. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 512. There was only one thought in Qin Wushuang's mind, and that was to kill Luo Ting. If he let Luo Ting live, he would pose a great threat to him. Luo Ting's mentality could no longer be estimated by ordinary people. Before the conflict had been ignited, this Luo Ting had already dealt with Qin Wushuang's relatives in the human countries. Now that the conflict had completely intensified, once Luo Ting escaped with his life, he would undoubtedly seek revenge. With this experience, Qin Wushuang was already extremely familiar with Luo Ting's style. Therefore, he would never give Luo Ting this opportunity. He did not want to make him regret it. Luo Ting sped up a few times and realized that he still could not shake off his pursuer. Although they were 200 or 300 miles apart, the other party's spiritual perception seemed to be able to lock onto his position. He followed him relentlessly and relentlessly. Luo Ting was so angry that he gritted his teeth. He had never thought that there would be a day when he would be chased by Qin Wushuang. Everything was like a dream, a complete nightmare. A martial artist from the human countries that he had looked down upon from the bottom of his heart had chased him all over the place. He could not use words to describe his depression. With one in front and one behind, the two parties had always maintained this distance. After all, Qin Wushuang had just refined the purple cloud in Yang wings and could not unleash its greatest effect. Thus, it was already an extraordinary performance to be able to maintain this extreme speed. However, after the two parties had chased for a day and a night, without even the blink of an eye, they had already flown out of the territory of the Orderly Mountain Prefecture and entered the territory of the Judge Mountain Prefecture. After entering the Judge Mountain Prefecture, Qin Wushuang slowly regained all of his memories. However, currently, Qin Wushuang was in a much better state than Luo Ting. It was because from beginning to end, Luo Ting had been supporting himself alone. On the other hand, Qin Wushuang was using a battle of attrition. First, he brought the 3 great spiritual beasts into the sealed scroll. After chasing for a while, he chose to take a break and summoned one-horned mystical horse, the spiritual beast with the fastest sprinting speed. Qin Wushuang let Du Hua mystical horse carry him on his back. He could take the opportunity to recover his vitality and get enough rest. When the one-horned mystical horse reached a certain level and started to get tired, Qin Wushuang switched to the hissing sky phoenix. This method of taking turns to fight gave them a reasonable amount of rest. But on Luo Ting's side, such a good thing did not happen. Luo Ting was exhausted from running for his life. He was so tired that his primordial spirit was about to explode. However, he discovered that the pursuers behind him were still as lively as ever. Luo Ting was simply depressed to the extreme, but he simply did not have the time to observe the pursuers, so his heart was angry and puzzled at the same time. This Qin Wushuang's cultivation is far inferior to mine. How is it possible for him to keep chasing after me? Could it be that his body is made of iron and won't get tired? However, Luo Ting did not believe it. He felt that with Qin Wushuang's cultivation realm, there was no reason for him to be more resistant to wear than him. However, that was the truth, and it made him even angrier. While he was flying, Luo Ting saw the continuous rolling mountain range in front of him. Indeed, there were 5 towering mountain peaks. It was that divine finger mountain, the territory of the primary central sect. Luo Ting thought, although that primary central sect does not have any relationship with the heavenly Luo Daoist sect, being a disciple of the sect, if I were to send a distress signal to the primary central sect, how could they not help me? When he thought here, Luo Ting had an idea and rushed towards the direction of the divine finger mountain. Currently, he was already somewhat tired. If he did not get some rest, as long as a fresh force appeared, it would destroy all of his defensive lines. Thinking here, Luo Ting had already flown to the sky above the divine finger mountain. Just as he was about to dive down, he saw a surge of hostility from below. In fact, a wave of extremely sharp, murderous intent was rushing up from below. Luo Ting looked down from the sky and saw that inside the divine finger mountain, a large group of martial artists were engaged in a fierce battle. Both sides had invested a large amount of military power and elite warriors that made Luo Ting feel waves of fear and trepidation. In fact, a life-and-death battle was happening at the Divine Finger Mountain. Indeed, the 2 parties involved in the battle were the Dark Green Cloud Daoist sect and the Primary Central sect. Both parties had sent out all their elite warriors and were engaged in a fierce battle. Before Luo Ting could rush down, he was stunned by that wave of murderous intent. Although it was a battle between 2 major sects between the 3rd and 2nd rate, the strongest elite warriors inside also possessed the strength of the perfect void martial stage. With such investment of power, Luo Ting could not get in. He only heard a loud shout from below. Irrelevant people, avoid the Divine Finger Mountain when you pass by. If you don't want to die, stay away. Today is the doomsday of the primary central sect. Whoever wants to be buried with us, come down. This was the warning from the Dark Green Cloud Daoist sect. Clearly, the battle between both parties had progressed to a white-hot state. Luo Ting did not give up and wanted to find a remote corner to hide. He wanted to use this battle to confuse the attention of Qin Wushuang and the others. Before he had finished this idea, the warning from below rushed up again. Outsider, if you take one more step, you will die. Instantly, Luo Ting felt a wave of gigantic pressure rushing up from below. Inwardly, he gave a long sigh and knew that he could not count on this divine finger mountain. Immediately, he continued to fly forward. He was also extremely familiar with the terrain of this area. He knew that if he kept flying forward, he would arrive at the wild flame cliff of the Crest Mountain. There was a cluster of natural stone forest that was richly endowed by nature. Perhaps he could make use of it. When he thought here, Luo Ting forcefully overcame that trace of exhaustion and sprinted with all his strength. With both parties chasing each other, Qin Wushuang and the others had gradually shortened the distance between them and Luo Ting by relying on the advantage of taking turns to tire him out. Apparently, Luo Ting was an arrow at the end of its flight. These 2 or 3 days of sprinting with all his strength had consumed his spiritual chi to a critical point. If he sprinted again, he would collapse instantly. From afar, Qin Wushuang spread out his spiritual perception completely. He already felt the exhaustion of Luo Ting's temperament. He said with great joy, "That Luo Ting is already struggling. I estimate that he will stop soon. Everyone, sprint with all your strength. This time, we must not let him escape again." Qin Wushuang knew the terrain. He also knew that the best landing point would be the crest mountain. According to his conjecture, Luo Ting should be thinking of landing at the crest mountain. However, at this time, Qin Wushuang and the others were like fresh troops. They were full of vigor and were full of vigor. They immediately spurred their horses and chased after Luo Ting in a spurt of energy. Sure enough, just as Qin Wushuang expected, Luo Ting landed near the crest mountain and restrained all his aura. When Luo Ting landed, his flight path and spiritual energy fluctuations were completely lost. When he merged his body into the busy mountain, it would be very troublesome to find him again. However, Qin Wushuang knew that Luo Ting must have landed at the crest mountain, because his flight path and spiritual energy fluctuations came to an abrupt stop when he reached the crest mountain. Without a doubt, Luo Ting was hiding here. Qin Wushuang was not unfamiliar with the crest mountain. It could even be said that he was very familiar with it. When he first cultivated here, he met with Mu Rong Qianji here. Even the many things that happened later were all in the crest mountain. Therefore, it could be said that Qin Wushuang was more familiar with the crest mountain than Luo Ting. Because of this reason, Qin Wushuang was also very experienced in searching. He was also very focused. At once, he searched everywhere. He summoned all 3 spiritual beasts and assigned them how to search and how to pull the net. Qin Wushuang knew that even if he had to use a carpet search, he must find Luo Ting. If Luo Ting did not die, the disaster would not end. After searching for a quarter of an hour, there was no harvest for the time being. Qin Wushuang said to Precious Pig, "Precious Pig, use your loud voice. Use your strongest roar and the most irregular notes to create the most unpleasant and unbearable noise." Pure Altar Precious Pig was stunned. "Master, although Old Pig is very good at it, what is this for?" This Luo Ting must be hiding in the dark to recover his energy. Although we can't find him for the time being, we can't let him relax. You use the noise to disturb his primordial spirit and make him restless and unable to focus wholeheartedly. In this way, his recovery speed will definitely be much slower. Pure Altar Precious Pig was enlightened and nodded with a smile. "This is easy." After saying that, he raised his voice and started to roar loudly. All kinds of strange sounds, like that of broken copper and iron, sounded especially irritating. Even when hissing Sky Phoenix and one-horned mystical horse heard Pure Altar Precious Pig's broken gong-like voice, they felt a wave of unbearable pain. At this moment, Luo Ting was hiding in the dense stone forest. He was wholeheartedly focused on cultivation, seizing every minute and second to recover his primordial spirit. Just when he was feeling at ease, he suddenly heard this broken gong-like voice that shook the sky. Hearing this, he felt a wave of irritation, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Just as he was trying his best to forget the existence of this noise, that Pure Altar Precious Pig's noise had a very penetrating power. It was as if every note was like a little mouse, drilling into Luo Ting's consciousness, disturbing his nerves, disturbing his thoughts, causing him to be unable to be distracted no matter what. If Luo Ting did not overexert himself at this time, he would definitely not be unable to withstand the test. But at this moment, he was already an arrow at the end of its flight. In addition to this kind of disturbance, it was naturally very uncomfortable. It was as if countless ants were constantly crawling in his heart and liver. It was also as if a small knife was constantly cutting his heart and liver. It was indescribably uncomfortable. When it rains, it pours. Just when Luo Ting was feeling a wave of annoyance, Qin Wushuang's voice sounded again. "Luo Ting, where did your heroic spirit go? I know you are hiding in this crest mountain, but you may not know that I am much more familiar with this crest mountain than you are." When Luo Ting heard this from afar, his lungs were about to explode from anger. Only then did he remember that Qin Wushuang seemed to have really stayed in this crest mountain before. In a panic, he miscalculated again. But Luo Ting did not panic. Crest Mountain stretched for thousands of miles. Even if you were familiar with it, could you be familiar with every corner? But Luo Ting did not believe in heresy. Glancing at the wild flame cliff where the red light was constantly rushing up, Luo Ting suddenly remembered that he had a top-grade spirit talisman on him. It could guarantee that he could pass through the fire as if it was flat ground. That wild flame cliff was filled with flames all day long. At this juncture, if he really had nowhere to go, he could just escape to the bottom of the wild flame cliff. The path to life had to be found in the path of death. Thinking of this, Luo Ting's heart was filled with confidence. P.S. Old Bull does not have any activities today. There will be 4 more chapters. Brothers, please send me some monthly votes as soon as possible. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 513. This idea that flashed through Luo Ting's mind made him feel more confident. Qin Wushuang, even if you use 3 abnormal, profound, void, martial stage spirit beasts to suppress one of mine, so what? If you let me leave calmly today, then you just have to wait for my endless revenge. Luo Ting thought fiercely. These days, he was really too aggrieved. Being chased by this Qin Wushuang, he had lost all of his face. To the proud and arrogant Luo Ting, this kind of gloominess was simply more unbearable than being beheaded. Luo Ting leaned against the stone forest and slowly moved towards the direction of the wild flame cliff step by step. He was afraid that he would make even the slightest movement and be discovered by Qin Wushuang and the others. Fortunately, this stone forest was really lush, and the surrounding of the stone forest was also surrounded by large trees with luxuriant foliage. Therefore, Luo Ting's movement had a very favorable cover. Qin Wushuang also spread out his wings and circled in the sky. Luo Ting looked into the sky through the gap and saw that Qin Wushuang actually had a pair of wings on his back. This kind of situation simply made Luo Ting feel a burst of guilty conscience. What the hell is this? How did he grow a pair of big wings out of nowhere? How did this Qin Wushuang have the same divine ability as the Beast Clan? Only those spirit beasts of the Bird Clan would normally grow a pair of wings on their back. Since ancient times, the situation of humans growing a pair of wings could be said to be extremely rare. After all, Luo Ting was still young, and there were many things that he was not as experienced and knowledgeable as the older generation. Seeing Qin Wushuang's strange appearance, his heart also felt somewhat guilty. In the depths of his heart, he had to admit that no matter how unwilling he was to do this, he had to be sure that he had indeed underestimated Qin Wushuang. Moreover, Qin Wushuang's talent was obviously far beyond his imagination. It should be known that in terms of age, Qin Wushuang was only in his early 20s and was much younger than Luo Ting. Therefore, in terms of talent, Luo Ting realized that he himself might not be much stronger than Qin Wushuang. At Qin Wushuang's age, Luo Ting's cultivation was not necessarily stronger than Qin Wushuang's. Luo Ting, when you were chasing after me, how heroic and how high-spirited were you? Don't hide. Come out sooner or later, you won't be able to hide. Today, this crest mountain will be your burial ground. Qin Wushuang continued to exert pressure on Luo Ting. Every word he said had a deterrent force, making Luo Ting unable to suppress his nervousness. Qin Wushuang flew in the air for a while and continued to fly towards the stone forest. He called out to the 3 spiritual beasts. This Luo Ting must be in the vicinity of this stone forest. The 3 of you split into 3 directions and form an encirclement. I'll provide support from above. This kind of inch-by-inch search made Luo Ting even more invisible. Luo Ting was shocked. He knew that if he continued to endure like this, he would at most be able to delay for a little longer. He had to make a change. When he was passive, He had to try his best to grasp the initiative. When Luo Ting thought of this, he held the chain knife in his hand and activated a spiritual talisman. His body turned into a ray of light and quickly rushed out of the stone forest, dashing towards the direction of the wild flame cliff. Naturally, this kind of situation was noticed at the first moment. Pure altar precious pig roared, "Block him! Where are you going?" One-horned mystical horse also dashed and chased after him. With a graceful spiritual bow in his hand, Qin Wushuang also dove down. Luo Ting's speed was very fast, and his goal was very clear. He rushed to the side of the wild flame cliff in an instant. He sneered and looked at Qin Wushuang with an incomparably arrogant expression. "Qin Wushuang, do you think that today, for sure, I am at the end of my rope? Is that so?" Luo Ting sneered, and his tone was filled with a mocking tone. Qin Wushuang flew in the air and maintained a graceful spiritual bow to attack at any time. He sneered and said to Luo Ting, "Then do you think that you still have a way to escape?" Luo Ting sneered and replied sarcastically, "Qin Wushuang, have you ever thought about the consequences that you would face if you failed to take the risk to kill me? I don't even need to think about the consequences. Today, you will definitely die." Qin Wushuang's voice was cold. The graceful spiritual bow had already started to aim and enveloped Luo Ting's body within the shooting range. Luo Ting gazed at Qin Wushuang with a layer of frost covering his face. He said indignantly, "Qin Wushuang, I admit that you have some luck. But today, all your luck has come to an end. You have so many good cards. Since you can't kill me at the last moment, this is your last chance. Next, you just have to wait for me, Luo Tian, to arrive and take my endless revenge." After Luo Ting finished speaking, he unexpectedly fell head first down the wild flame cliff. This spirit of sacrificing oneself to jump off the cliff made Qin Wushuang and the three spirit beasts shocked. They never thought that Luo Ting would choose to jump off the cliff on his own accord and not make a deathbed struggle. As he fell head first, Qin Wushuang immediately reacted and shouted, "Not good. I'm afraid that this brat has a trick up his sleeve." After he finished speaking, Qin Wushuang also dived down. Following the direction of Luo Ting's fall, he spread out his wings and ferociously drilled downwards. With a bow and arrow in one hand and the Overlord Breaking Formation spear in the other, he swept away all of the red mist. He saw that Luo Ting's figure was already like a black dot that quickly fell forward. This Luo Ting actually ignored this absolute high temperature. This made Qin Wushuang feel apprehensive in his heart. Immediately, he understood that Luo Ting most likely had some kind of heaven-defying equipment on his body that had extremely high endurance against fire. Without thinking, he shouted, "Luo Ting, even if you escape to the Nine Serenities Hell, today I will chase you to the Nine Serenities Hell. I'm going to take your life today." At this moment, suddenly, the airflow from below surged up at a high speed. He only heard Luo Ting's miserable cry, as if he had encountered some unexpected situation. Inwardly, Qin Wushuang was overjoyed when he heard this. Just when he wanted to know what had happened, suddenly a scolding voice shouted from below, "Darn it! How come something fell down all of a sudden?" Yet another voice said, "Second, did you hear a sound from above?" "Sound? What sound?" "Only the sound of the boiling magma came from below. I did not hear any other sound." "What is that?" "It seems to be Boss's voice." "No way. How could it be Boss?" "Boss fell into this giant magma lake." Indeed, the one who spoke was the purple flame electric beast. "Look, that person is not dead." Of course, the other voice was Bao Bao. He looked at that giant magma lake with astonishment. A voice was crawling with great effort in the thick magma. Of course, this person was Luo Ting. Initially, Luo Ting had rushed down unconsciously. Since he had consumed too much spiritual qi in the previous few days, he could not purify his spiritual qi under this high-temperature environment. Thus, when he was about to reach the bottom, he lost his footing and fell down. Although he was about to hit the ground, the momentum of the loss of his footing was not strong. However, the place where he had fallen was unlucky, as he had fallen into that boiling magma lake. Although Luo Ting was powerful, when he fell into this boiling magma, although he had the protection of the spiritual talisman to prevent the high temperature from invading him, the powerful pulling force of the magma made Luo Ting, who was an arrow at the end of its flight, feel extremely strenuous. Each step he swam felt extremely difficult. Luo Ting struggled a little, and his soul scattered. He knew that unless he recovered his strength, he would not be able to walk out of this giant magma lake. However, the time of use of that spiritual talisman was limited. It was not the kind of spiritual talisman that could not be used up in the long run. Furthermore, under such an environment, it was impossible for Luo Ting to have sufficient time to recover his strength. Frightened out of his wits, Luo Ting looked around. When he saw Bao Bao and the purple flame electric beast, he immediately called out, "Hey, you two! Are you the indigenous spiritual beasts here? Please help me. I am Luo Ting from Luo Tian. If you guys can think of a way to drag me out of this giant magma lake, I will definitely thank you heavily. I believe that with my rich strength, certainly. You are Luo Ting? That Luo Ting from Luo Tian?" Bao Bao and Lone felt incredibly incredulous. Luo Ting thought that the other party had heard of his name. Instantly, he nodded and said, "That's me. You two, please help me. Quickly." An extremely strange smile emerged on Bao Bao and Lone's face. They clapped their hands continuously and laughed while holding their stomachs. They looked at Luo Ting with eyes full of schadenfreude. They even looked at him as if he was their prey. Luo Ting's scalp felt numb, and his eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. He said stutteringly, "You guys, what do you guys plan to do? What do we plan to do?" The purple flame electric beast laughed eerily. "You humans have a saying? You can wear out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it without any effort. Bao Bao, right?" Bao Bao was also overjoyed. "Yes, haha, Luo Ting." At this moment, suddenly, a voice came down from above against this rushing airflow. "Luo Ting, I know you are not dead. However, how far do you think you can go?" Suppressed by this wave of airflow, Qin Wushuang could not rush down and kept shouting from above. However, his voice came down from the opposite direction of this rising airflow. Thus, his voice could not be heard clearly. Bao Bao and Lone were overjoyed as they cried out, Boss, is that you? We are Bao Bao and Lone." The voice from below followed the airflow and reached Qin Wushuang's ears. Although the noise was loud, he could hear it more clearly. "Bao Bao Lone?" Qin Wushuang was overjoyed at this turn of events. "You guys are not dead." He used almost all of his power to send his voice down against the airflow. When Bao Bao and Lone heard Qin Wushuang's voice, they were sure that it was Qin Wushuang. They were even more overjoyed. "Boss, it's us. Boss, you are indeed safe and sound. Ha. The heavens did not destroy us three brothers." Bao Bao and Lone hugged each other and jumped next to the giant magma lake excitedly. At the same time, they shouted, "Boss, is it you who chased after Luo Ting?" Qin Wushuang was stunned. Could it be that Luo Ting is down there? "Ha, boss, this is called the heavens have eyes. This Luo Ting fell into a giant magma lake and is now taking a magma bath. Ha. Boss, are you going to come down and take a look?" Qin Wushuang worked hard to rush through this wave of airflow as he said, "Bao Bao Lone, watch that guy. I will go down when the eruption period of this wave of airflow is over." When Luo Ting heard the main battle between the two sides, he was both shocked and furious. He almost fainted on the spot. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 514. When Luo Ting heard this exchange, he directly spat out a mouthful of blood. He had to admit that his luck was extremely bad. At the bottom of the wild flame cliff, where no one had come in 1,000 years, there were two spiritual beasts that called Qin Wushuang brothers. Everything seemed to be a chess piece arranged by Qin Wushuang, waiting for him to come to his door. And this giant lava lake seemed to be a trap set by Qin Wushuang, waiting for him to jump in. Regardless of how flustered and exasperated Luo Ting was, the more he struggled in this giant lava lake, the more he sank. In a moment, that lava had wrapped around his entire body below his waist. Luo Ting took a deep breath and clasped the chain blade lightly. Then, he observed the terrain around him. As long as there was a little place he could borrow, he had the confidence to use the length of the chain blade to pull himself out of the lava. Although he might not be able to escape from this valley, it would be better than dying before his sworn enemy. That kind of helpless struggle would certainly make his enemy feel great. Thus, Luo Ting would never give up. Since the airflow was still rising, Qin Wushuang would not be able to rush down for now. He must think of a way to struggle out. Clearly, these two spiritual beasts were much weaker than those three monstrous spiritual beasts. In a short sprint, Luo Ting had the confidence to shake them off. Instantly, he looked around and locked his gaze on a giant tree on the southern shore. When he stopped looking at that giant tree, suddenly Bao Bao laughed. "Lone, that giant tree looks annoying. How could a tree grow in this fiery valley? It looks irksome. Go pull it up by the roots to prevent it from being annoying." How could the purple flame electric beast not know Luo Ting's thoughts? He knew that Bao Bao was deliberately teasing Luo Ting. Thus, he twisted his body and shot to the side of that giant tree. He pulled with both arms, and with a fierce cry, he pulled this giant tree up by the roots. He threw it into the distance. Instantly, this throw had far exceeded the range of Luo Ting's chain blade. The purple flame electric beast patrolled around, and in a spurt of energy, he continued to pull up all the giant trees he could borrow. This pull could be said to have completely destroyed Luo Ting's life force. Naturally, Luo Ting would not sit and wait for his death. With a wave of his arm, the chain knife was like a whirlwind as it rapidly flew towards the last big tree in the north. Bao Bao had been staring at Luo Ting for a while. When he saw Luo Ting raise his arm, he knew his next move. He swung his arms and smashed the giant stick over. Halfway through, he blocked Luo Ting's chain blade. With this swing, sparks flew in all directions. Bao Bao's body was extremely agile. With a roll in the air, he smashed towards Luo Ting's head. Everything below Luo Ting's waist was completely covered by the magma. Thus, it was extremely difficult for him to move, and his combat power was almost half of his usual. Plus, he was holding on bitterly and was on the verge of collapsing his spiritual qi. Thus, when he was attacked by a fresh force like Bao Bao, instantly he felt powerless. "Smelly monkey!" Luo Ting gritted his teeth. "Get out of my way!" From the corner of his eyes, Bao Bao saw that the purple flame electric beast had already pulled out that last giant tree. He chuckled. "Go away then. Stay here and take root." "Ha ha!" After he had finished, he somersaulted a dozen times in the air and dropped to the shore. "Boss, the airflow has weakened. It's about time to come down. You must be careful. Don't be like Luo Ting and fall into the giant magma lake." Bao Bao observed this airflow and said again, "Also, the temperature down here is extremely high. If you can't take it, don't force yourself to come down." Bao Bao and Lone had stayed at the bottom of this valley for many days. Besides training, they observed the changes of this airflow. Gradually, they had grasped the pattern of this airflow. They knew when it would rise and when it would calm down. However, the surrounding red mist and the high temperature would not dissipate no matter what. If it were the Qin Wushuang of the past, it would be unknown whether or not he could withstand such high temperature. However, the current Qin Wushuang had that azure blue armor. His resistance to high temperature could be said to be much more advanced than Luo Ting's spiritual talisman. Of course, he would be able to withstand this high temperature. Indeed, as Bao Bao had said, the airflow had slowly calmed down. When Qin Wushuang saw that the airflow had weakened by about half, he dashed down with all his strength. As far as the eye could see, there was indeed a sea of boiling magma that was emitting scorching heat. It was like a pot of thick porridge, giving people a very strong feeling of impact in their hearts. "Boss!" Bao Bao and Lone were overjoyed as they cheered. Qin Wushuang dropped to the shore and was also extremely excited. "Great, Bao Bao, Lone, you guys are indeed here. I knew that nothing would happen to you guys. Boss, you're also fine, haha. Thank God. Bao Bao was overjoyed. Lone pointed to that Luo Ting and asked, Boss, how did you meet this guy? And how did you end up in such an embarrassing state after being chased by you? Instantly, Qin Wushuang made the long story short and told him everything that had happened after they had parted. Besides the part about the Ghost King Mountain that he did not speak about, he spoke about the other important parts. Bao Bao and Lone sighed endlessly as they learned that Qin Wushuang had come to this wild flame cliff to find them a few times. He had almost flown to the bottom of the valley and was blocked by that airflow. Boss, that air current is erupting for at least 11 hours out of the 24 hours a day. The period of calmness is short. Thus, it would be difficult for the people above to come down, unless you are lucky and that airflow is not strong. This guy fell head first, and it seems that he went against the flow of that airflow. No wonder he fell head first, haha. Looking at Luo Ting, who was struggling in the giant magma lake, Qin Wushuang passed through Bao Bao and Lone to walk to the shore. He stared at Luo Ting and mocked him without holding back. Luo Ting, how do you feel? Inwardly, Luo Ting was filled with endless sorrow. He had exhausted all his means and sorted out all his trump cards. In the end, he still discovered that the trump cards he possessed could not help him escape from this crisis. When he thought here, naturally, Luo Ting felt some fear inwardly. However, before Qin Wushuang, this Luo Ting still remained strong. He did not wish to let Qin Wushuang admire his current state. Pa! Luo Ting's inner defense line had almost collapsed as he still cried out, Qin Wushuang, you would not dare to kill me. Qin Wushuang smacked his tongue and laughed. Luo Ting, under your situation, I cannot understand where your confidence comes from. Blind confidence is called arrogance. Do you know what arrogance means? Luo Ting said angrily, Don't pick words with me. Qin Wushuang, I am officially warning you. You have acted recklessly and chased after me. For this matter, the head Dao warrior of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect already knows. If you kill me, you know the consequences. The head Dao warrior is not me. Once he gets angry, he can raise the human countries to the ground at any time. You, a mere disciple of the human countries, can you bear the torrential anger of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect? Luo Ting felt that as long as this Qin Wushuang had not lost his mind, he should know that in the end, he could not afford to offend the heavenly Luo Daoist sect. Only by making Qin Wushuang restrain his fear, Luo Ting could find a thread of survival. However, his persuasion ability was clearly limited. After he had finished speaking, not only did Qin Wushuang not show any sign of repentance, he added fuel to the fire. Is the heavenly Luo Daoist sect the master of the heavenly Emperor Mountain? Is it the totem powerhouse? Luo Ting, if you think that by mentioning the heavenly Luo Daoist sect, I must say that you are very naive. Luo Ting's expression changed dramatically. Qin Wushuang, you are willful and not afraid of death. Could it be that you would abandon your family, your fellow disciples? If you kill me, the heavenly Luo Daoist sect will lose a disciple. And you, Qin Wushuang, will lose everything, including yourself, your family, and all your friends. Anyone who knows you, Qin Wushuang, will be buried with me. Lone said angrily, Boss, don't listen to this kid's nonsense. How about I end his little life so that the heavenly Luo Daoist sect won't chase after him? Luo Ting cried out miserably, It's useless. If any of your shrimp soldiers and crab generals make a move, this debt will be on your head. Besides, even if someone else were to kill me, in the end, it will be you who will take the blame. It's because I have already contacted the head Dao warrior. He knows that you are chasing after me with 3 spiritual beasts at the profound void martial stage. Qin Wushuang kept sneering coldly and did not speak a word. He only stared at this Luo Ting, and apparently, he was also trying to discern the truth of his words. When Luo Ting saw Qin Wushuang acting like this, he felt secretly joyful. With a flash of his hand, he took that communication jade plate. This is the jade plate I used to communicate with the head Dao warrior. How about I try to communicate with him again? Luo Ting knew that in the current situation, he must prove that he had contacted the head Dao warrior as soon as possible. Or else, without the slightest restraining fear, Qin Wushuang would certainly reap his life without mercy in the next moment. With a layer of concern from the head Dao warrior, more or less, this Qin Wushuang would consider more before making a move. Holding back from shooting at the rat for fear of breaking the vases, it would not be easy to kill Luo Ting. Unless this Qin Wushuang had lost his mind and did not even want his family and friends. From Luo Ting's understanding of Qin Wushuang, this Qin Wushuang would not ignore his family and friends. Luo Ting, who thought that he had succeeded in his scheme, felt that he had grasped Qin Wushuang's weakness. He initiated his spiritual perception, and once again, a tremendous change appeared on the jade plate in Luo Ting's hand. A cold voice emerged from inside. Luo Ting, where are you? I have already sent out a few advanced elders, and the third Dao warrior has also stepped out. You have to hold on, do you understand? The voice of the head Dao warrior, Luo Tongtian, was dignified and cold as he said. Luo Ting did not know whether to laugh or cry. Head Dao warrior, I can't hold on anymore. I have now fallen below the wild flame cliff of the crest mountain of the Judge Mountain. Below my waist, I am surrounded by magma. Head Dao warrior, can you urge those reinforcements to come quickly? As Luo Ting spoke till here, he proudly waved the jade plate in his hand towards Qin Wushuang. How far is Qin Wushuang from you? Hearing that Luo Ting's situation was not good, Head Dao warrior was very concerned. Head Dao warrior, they're already right under my nose. Luo Ting's tone was low, full of frustration and defeat. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen, please go to www.chitian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 515. Even an elite senior like the head Dao warrior was stunned when he heard Luo Ting's words. However, he reacted quickly and said with an even colder tone, "Did you not tell him the consequences of killing you and offending the heavenly Luo Daoist sect?" Head Dao warrior already told him clearly. Under the imposing manner of the head Dao warrior, Luo Ting was somewhat trembling with fear. Of course, under such circumstances, he did not have much confidence. He did not know whether Qin Wushuang would compromise or not. On the side of the head Dao warrior, he initiated his spiritual perception and increased the power of his voice. He rushed out of the jade plate and resounded through the entire mountain valley. Kid of the human countries, listen up. The tone of the head Dao warrior Luo Tongtian was deep, and within this deep tone, there was a tyrannical sense of authority. I don't care how much you have recovered, or how many fortuitous opportunities you have. If you kill Luo Ting today, it means you are becoming the enemy of the entire heavenly Luo Daoist sect. For such a price, I can tell you with certainty that you cannot bear it. The warning of the head Dao warrior was filled with dignity. Relying on the imposing manner of the head Dao warrior, Luo Ting had instantly gained much confidence. He raised his head and stared at Qin Wushuang. He watched each of Qin Wushuang's movements and even each of his eyes and movements. Qin Wushuang was expressionless. Suddenly, Qin Wushuang laughed and asked leisurely, "So only the heavenly Luo Daoist sect is allowed to bully me and chase after me?" Qin Wushuang. "It's natural for you guys to chase after me. You used despicable methods to deal with my friends and family in the human countries, and you were even more justified. And when I fought back, you guys said I was becoming the enemy of the entire heavenly Luo Daoist sect. Okay, it's the same result if I didn't fight back. It's also the same result if I fought back. If it were you guys, what would you choose?" Qin Wushuang's tone was strangely calm. He did not have the slightest intention of gnashing his teeth. Through his spiritual perception, Luo Ting passed Qin Wushuang's words to him. That head Dao warrior gave a cold sneer. "From your words, you're planning to bargain? Okay, then I will give you a chance. Today, if you let Luo Ting leave, I can guarantee that I will not go to the human countries to harass your relatives and friends." The matter between you and the heavenly Luo Daoist sect can be resolved between you and Luo Ting. No one else was allowed to interfere. What do you think? Qin Wushuang said indifferently. Then the situation will be the same as today. Now, isn't it between me and Luo Ting? Head Dao warrior, since you said so, why are you interfering? The head Dao warrior knew that Qin Wushuang was deliberately playing dumb with him, but he said angrily, "Of course, I'm talking about after this." Qin Wushuang said with a cold smile, "After this time? In the end, you still want me to spare Luo Ting's worthless life. Is that what you mean?" Luo Ting's face turned green and white. Since Qin Wushuang had called him worthless before the head Dao warrior, even if he were to return alive, his position in the heavenly Luo Daoist sect would drop drastically. However, no matter how proud Luo Ting was, he couldn't care less now. His only desire was to escape for his life. As long as he survived today's calamity, Luo Ting had the confidence to get back at him and make Qin Wushuang pay more than 10 times the price. Now, it would depend on whether the head Dao warrior could intimidate that Qin Wushuang. The head Dao warrior said coldly, "Young man, to flaunt your sharp tongue or to flaunt your happiness, it's definitely not the action of a smart person. It seems that the truth is far away from you. But if you calmed down and thought about it, all the possible consequences would come crashing down on you like a flood. I promise that once the wave of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect surges over, it will not be something you can endure." Qin Wushuang laughed out of extreme anger. It was not the first time he had heard such senseless threats. Ever since he had stepped onto the path of martial arts, more than 10 people had said these words. Only, with Qin Wushuang's lofty and unyielding character, when had he ever compromised? For such threats, the more ridiculous they were, the more anger Qin Wushuang felt stifled inside his heart. Clearly, Qin Wushuang was the one who held the upper hand. However, the tone of the other party was clearly speaking with a condescending and overbearing tone. They did not even have the basic courtesy to negotiate. The most repulsive thing was their bandit logic. They had appeared to be right and proper when they were chasing after Qin Wushuang. And when they spoke about how he dealt with Luo Ting, it seemed as if he had violated the heavenly law. In the end, this imbalance was determined by strength. Perhaps, in the eyes of the Dao warrior of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect, it was already a great favor to condescend to talk to Qin Wushuang. Perhaps, in his eyes, Qin Wushuang was only a mole cricket and ant. However, even if he was a mole cricket and ant in their eyes, Qin Wushuang still had his own beliefs. For this belief, he would never yield because of authority, nor would he compromise because of threats. He would not change without reason. He would give them a taste of their own medicine. All of this was due to a simple cause and effect. Therefore, the fact that Luo Ting had fallen to his current state was the result. Even if Qin Wushuang were to be struck by lightning in the next moment, he would not let go of the opportunity to kill Luo Ting. It was because the despicable actions of this Luo Ting had deeply touched his reverse scale. Kill! The sharp light in Qin Wushuang's eyes kept flashing. Suddenly, with a flash of light, he had already pulled out the He-Jimin breaking formation spear and pointed it at Luo Ting from afar. He said lightly, "Luo Ting, indeed, your heavenly Luo Daoist sect is of the same origin. This so-called head Dao venerate, in my opinion, is exactly the same as you. Remember, I, Qin Wushuang, have a proud and unyielding character. Even if you are a god descending from the heavens, you will not change my decision. You, Luo Ting, should have died long ago. Even if I kill you 10 times, it would not be enough to vent the anger in my heart, and it would not be enough to let those innocent freelance martial artists die in peace." Luo Ting's pupils contracted rapidly as he shouted, "Qin Wushuang, you will regret this." "Regret? Even if that day were to come, I will never let you see it. Besides, as a real man, since I have made the decision, I will not regret it." After he had finished speaking, Qin Wushuang opened his wings again and extended the He-Jimin breaking formation spear. He dashed towards Luo Ting. Luo Ting yelled and screamed. Apparently, he was making his final struggle. This yelling and screaming had directly interfered with the spiritual perception of the head Dao warrior. Suddenly, that head Dao warrior's Dao heart seemed to have been pierced by a sharp knife. He knew that his aura was still not enough to suppress that Qin Wuxuan. And Luo Ting's performance at the most crucial moment had also made him, the head Dao warrior, feel a deep sense of despair. That spiritual perception jade plate had transmitted each of Luo Ting's final struggles, each of his movements, each of his inner thoughts, and even each of his disgraceful actions had all fallen into the head Dao warrior's spiritual perception. The head Dao warrior opened his mouth, and with an ah sound, he spat out a mouthful of blood. This was not an internal injury, but fresh blood from his life. Along with Luo Ting's last scream, which was hysterical and heartbreaking, this head Dao warrior could no longer suppress his rage. He punched the bed and shouted, "Someone come!" Two boys that served him walked over and stood next to Luo Tongtian with a face full of fear. "Head Dao warrior, please give your orders." Luo Tongtian roared, "Summon all higher-ups and core disciples of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect to gather at the connecting heaven building. Hurry!" After the 3 drumming sessions were over, all of the cultivators who were in the vicinity didn't dare to be negligent. They knew that the great Tao Paragon had personally summoned them and didn't dare to linger. They quickly gathered in Heavenspan Pavilion. Everyone saw Luo Tongtian, the head Tao warrior, standing in front of them. A totem that belonged to the heavenly Luo Taoist sect was drawn on a thick and wide wall. That giant wall was like a chessboard as it crisscrossed with each other. It gave people a sense of deep meaning. Luo Tongtian slowly turned around and glanced across the entire scene with a cold gaze. "Is everyone here?" Beside the few higher-ups that had gone out to provide assistance, everyone is here. Of course, young Master Luo Ting is absent. One of the elders that was in charge of counting the number of people said. Luo Ting. Luo Tongtian felt as if a knife was twisting in his heart. Once again, Luo Ting's struggles before his death overflowed his spiritual perception. Luo Tongtian's gloomy expression secretly conveyed some kind of gloomy mood. Like a plague, it slowly spread out in the dark. Luo Ting, he will never be able to attend. Luo Tongtian's tone was incredibly gloomy and filled with sorrow and pain. This was the young man that he had spent all his efforts to nurture to become his successor. He had spent an unknown amount of effort, manpower, and resources on him. However, this Luo Ting had lost his life in this sudden incident that had happened without any warning signs. Although it was Luo Ting who had died, the entire heavenly Luo Taoist sect had been denied. Their vision in selecting a successor, as well as the strategy and methods to nurture the successor, had all been denied. Instantly, the words of the head Dao warrior had caused the entire scene to become solemn. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Luo Ting would never be able to attend? What do these words mean? Could it be that Luo Ting? Impossible. How could Luo Ting have died? Unconsciously, many people had already viewed Luo Ting as the future successor of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. They could not accept the news of Luo Ting's sudden death. A wave of questioning and lamentation filled the hall. Luo Tongtian said with a cold voice, "Listen well. The enemy is Qin Wuxuan from the human countries. This name has not made the heavenly Luo Taoist sect unhappy for the first time. I don't care what methods you use. In the end, I want this Qin Wuxuan to suffer a fate worse than death. Before all his family and friends have died, I do not wish for him to die this easily. Remember, I want him to watch helplessly as his friends die, one by one in front of his eyes. Furthermore, they will die painfully." When Luo Tongtian finished speaking, he was almost gnashing his teeth in anger. No words could describe his anger and hatred at this moment. He only wished to use all means to torture Qin Wuxuan. Even for the higher-ups of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect, each of them felt a lingering fear when they heard Luo Tongtian's cold tone. Inwardly, they were in a perilous situation. Apparently, they could not calm down from Luo Ting's death. After they had agreed, these higher-ups all retreated. When they saw the face of the head Tao warrior, no one dared to stay at the scene and offend him. If someone were to make the head Tao warrior feel unhappy, they would be throwing their own lives away. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chijian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 516. Of course, Luo Ting's final struggle did not bring much trouble to Qin Wushuang. The instant when the hegemon breaking formation spear pierced into Luo Ting's throat, besides the fear of death, Luo Ting's expression was filled with disbelief. Bao Bao pulled Luo Ting's chain blade and pulled him out of the magma. Boss, since this Luo Ting is the most prized disciple of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect, he must have a lot of good things. Let me search. Indeed, Luo Ting had a lot of good things. Besides those one-time use spiritual talismans, regardless of his weapons or armor, they were all first-rate goods. Besides this, he also seized some spiritual talismans that he did not have the time to use. What made Qin Wushuang feel even more of a timely help was that this Luo Ting had an abundance of crystal stones. It made Qin Wushuang's crystal stone storage even more abundant. Boss, what should we do with the body? After they had finished searching, Bao Bao glanced at Luo Ting's body and asked with a smile. After he had killed Luo Ting, Qin Wushuang's mood had become slightly more relaxed. He looked at Luo Ting's body and said lightly, "Throw it into this giant magma lake." Bao Bao kicked that Luo Ting down and turned to say to Qin Wushuang, "Boss, it seems that after we got separated, you had another fortuitous opportunity." Qin Wushuang did not hide it and told them about that formation. When Bao Bao and Lone heard the story, they felt both miraculous and somewhat regretful that they could not participate in such a momentous moment. When they mentioned how Luo Ting had used a treacherous scheme to frame Qin Wushuang and trick those freelance martial artists to go to the human countries, Bao Bao and Lone still swore and despised Luo Ting's character to the extreme. Boss, that whatever head Tao warrior is furious, we must be prepared. Naturally, Qin Wushuang had heard the furious tone of that head Tao warrior of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. However, since Qin Wushuang had decided to kill Luo Ting, of course he would not give up the idea of revenge because of a threat from a million miles away. In fact, from the first moment when the heavenly Luo Taoist sect had pursued him, Qin Wushuang knew that he would not let this matter go. The final outcome would definitely be a fight to the death. If Qin Wushuang was soft-hearted or retreated, there would be no other result other than letting him die a little faster. Qin Wushuang was absolutely unwilling to sit and wait to be beaten, so he made the first move. Especially this Luo Ting. Qin Wushuang loathed him to the extreme. Bao Bao, even if Boss did not kill this Luo Ting, would the heavenly Luo Taoist sect let go? Lone was rather straightforward. That would be impossible. The heavenly Luo Taoist sect would do anything to deal with Boss. There's no need to be courteous. Even if we can't beat them, we have to kill a few of them first. Qin Wushuang said coldly, "Revenge. Only the heavenly Luo Taoist sect could take revenge on us? Can't we take the initiative to deal with them?" Both Bao Bao and Lone were ferocious spiritual beasts. Hearing Qin Wushuang's words, their blood surged as they immediately asked, "How do you plan to take revenge? Boss, do you have any good ideas?" After a moment of thinking, Qin Wushuang said to Bao Bao and Lone, "Let's go up and talk." Both Bao Bao and Lone were overjoyed. This time, when they were training at the bottom of the valley, their strength had increased rapidly. Both of them had broken through the refined void martial stage and entered the transformation void martial stage. At the transformation void martial stage, one could fly in the air. Since Bao Bao and Lone had mastered the flying technique, they had planned to explore the structure of the valley and try to rush up the wild flame cliff. Unexpectedly, by coincidence, they had encountered Qin Wushuang chasing after Luo Ting. Under the lead of Qin Wushuang, Under the support of the airflow, the three brothers flew to the top of the cliff with ease. Soon, they had dropped to the top of the cliff. Those three spiritual beasts at the profound void martial stage were guarding the wild flame cliff. They had also tried to rush down, only to discover that the high temperature was unbearable. Since they were not familiar with the terrain, they could only wait at the top of the wild flame cliff. When they saw Qin Wushuang had returned successfully with two friends, they were overjoyed. Qin Wushuang introduced each other to each other. Since they were all spiritual beasts, they became familiar with each other quickly. Especially Bao Bao. He was extremely excited. "Boss, with the help of these three brothers, it will be much more convenient in the future." Pure altar precious pig snorted. "Little monkey, among the 12 sealed scrolls, we also have a brother from the giant monkey clan. However, his strength is much stronger than yours." Bao Bao did not mind as he laughed mischievously. "I'm still young. You're all old monsters that have lived for a few thousand years. I am not even 10 years old." "Not even 10 years old." Hissing Sky Phoenix and that one-horned mystical horse felt somewhat inconceivable. They looked at Bao Bao and felt extremely curious. These spiritual beasts had exceptional eyesight. They could see that the purple flame electric beast should be a few thousand years old spiritual beast. And for Bao Bao, they could not see through his age. When they heard Bao Bao claiming to be less than 10 years old, they were extremely surprised. Qin Wushuang said with a smile, "Indeed, Bao Bao is not even 10 years old." A wave of uproar emerged. Although these spiritual beasts were sealed thousands, or even tens of thousands of years ago, they were extremely impressed when they heard that Bao Bao had such strength before the age of 10. "Haha, this way, it seems that brother of ours from the giant monkey clan also feels inferior before you." The fat on the entire body of pure, altar precious pig trembled. The sealed spiritual beasts inside these sealed scrolls were different than the purple flame electric beast. When they were sealed, even their vital energy and primordial spirit were sealed. In other words, they did not possess the ability to level up again, unless the seal on their primordial spirit was broken. As for the purple flame electric beast, although he was also sealed, he could still advance and continue to cultivate. This was the difference between them. 10 years old, and you have reached the transformation void martial stage. Little monkey, nice job. Hissing Sky Phoenix also praised him. Qin Wushuang said, "This is not strange. Bao Bao has the bloodline of the ancient spiritual monkey. In fact, he should be a descendant of the divine clan. It's not strange to have such talent." Ancient spiritual monkey? This time, those three spiritual beasts at the profound void martial stage were all stunned. They looked at Bao Bao with a few extra traces of envy. The bloodline of the spiritual monkey was equivalent to having the bloodline of the divine clan. Not only was he noble, his potential for training was many times stronger than ordinary spiritual beasts. No wonder he could train to the transformation void martial stage at such a young age. He had the bloodline of the spiritual monkey. These spiritual beasts inside the sealed scrolls were extremely envious of Bao Bao, especially when they thought about how Bao Bao had a boundless future and how they could not escape their fate. They felt more or less bitter inwardly. However, their seal immediately stopped them from thinking in this direction. Immediately, Qin Wushuang received such a signal through his spiritual perception. He said with a smile, "If everyone works hard, the future will always be bright." Pure altar precious pig gave a long sigh. "Master, we are sealed beasts and have no future. We are only masters fighting machines." Qin Wushuang said seriously, "That's right, at the current stage, you guys are my contracted spiritual beasts. However, if I continue to increase my strength in the future, when I am able to break the seal for you guys, you will get rid of your fate." These three spiritual beasts at the profound void martial stage were overjoyed as they looked at Qin Wushuang with disbelief. "Master, you are not trying to make us happy, right?" Bao Bao laughed. "Of course not. My boss is very kind and will never order you around like slaves. If boss enters the supreme Tao, I believe he can lift the seal for you and restore your freedom. Isn't that right, Lone?" The purple flame electric beast had followed Qin Wushuang for a long time and was familiar with Qin Wushuang. He knew that Qin Wushuang was kind-hearted and treated his contracted spiritual beasts well. He nodded and said, "Everyone, in fact, I am also a sealed spiritual beast. Only, my form is slightly different from yours. Just wait, if there is anyone in this world that can restore your freedom, it will be Boss Wushuang. You guys should also be a part of the formation. Me too. And Boss is the inheritor of the formation. He has inherited everything from the original owner of the formation. I believe that in the future, Boss will be the person at the peak of the Tianxian land. For sure, he will rule the fate of the entire Tianxian land." The purple flame electric beast was extremely determined as he had survived numerous calamities. It had made him even more convinced that Qin Wushuang was a genius blessed by the heavens. In the unseen world, for sure, he had been blessed by a miraculous fortune. If he did not have such great fortune, how could he have acquired the inheritance of that formation? Bao Bao also said, "Lone is right. Regardless of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect, the heavenly punishing villa, or the sound of thunder sect, each of them are insurmountable mountains. Sooner or later, they will be trampled under Boss's feet and become his stepping stone to the peak." Bao Bao and Lone spoke one after another in a high-profile manner. Qin Wushuang did not become hot-headed as he said calmly, "It's still too early to say 1,000 words or 10,000 words. Since Luo Ting is dead, the revenge of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect will erupt like a volcano. We must be prepared for everything." "Haha, boss, what are you afraid of? I don't believe that those Dao warriors will step out themselves." Bao Bao was extremely optimistic. If their Dao warriors step out to deal with you, for sure the heavenly Luo Daoist sect will become the #1 joke of the Xian Yuan Mound. "Boss, if you can mobilize all the Dao warriors of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect to deal with you, I believe that the heavenly Emperor Qin clan will not sit by and do nothing." Heavenly Emperor Qin clan? Inwardly, Qin Wushuang felt a wave of bitterness. He thought about how Senior Qin Shishuan's body had yet to turn cold and was still waiting for his soul to return to his homeland. For this dying wish, regardless of anything, Qin Wushuang must fulfill it for Senior Qin Shishuan. Everyone listen well. We will return to the Ironwood State City of the Orderly Mountain Prefecture immediately. Jade Hair and Mole are still waiting for us there. After we regroup, we will make plans. This time, Qin Wushuang had achieved complete success when he ambushed those freelance martial artists at the dispersed Praying Mountain. Currently, the news of Luo Ting spreading rumors to frame Qin Wushuang had spread across the entire Xian Yuan Mound. Naturally, after those freelance martial artists learned that they had been tricked, they stopped their footsteps towards the human countries. For some freelance martial artists who were unwilling to give up, after they had suffered at the hands of Moon Palace Jadehair and Sky Pilfered Mole, they had either died or suffered injuries. This way, when Qin Wushuang and his friends had returned to the Ironwood State City, this place was no longer as lively as before. The 3 freelance martial artists had also retreated from this area. After they had regrouped, Qin Wushuang decided to return to the human countries and take care of all the aftermath. Then, he would return to the Xian Yuan Mound to deal with the heavenly Luo Daoist sect. To be continued. If you want to know about the future, please log on to www.chijian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 517. Qin Wushuang and his group returned to the dispersed Praying Mountain. Bao Bao returned to the Monkey King Mountain to visit. Both parties agreed to meet again at the Monkey King Mountain. When Qin Wushuang returned to the human countries, this time, Qin Wushuang was even more cautious. He sent his family to the Stargaze Palace. As long as there were any movements, he would immediately enter the Endless Eastern Sea. Without the spiritual key to open the Endless Eastern Sea, even if the head Dao warrior of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect had come, Qin Wushuang would not be worried. It was because even the head Tao warrior of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect could not easily open the defenses of this endless eastern sea. After Qin Wushuang had settled everything, he did not waste any more time. After he met up with Bao Bao at the Monkey King Mountain, they headed towards the direction of the Xian Yuan Mount again. This time, Qin Wushuang and his group had learned their lesson and would not get involved in any disputes along the way. They only left Ying Long to scout the situation at the border between the Xian Yuan Mound and the dispersed Praying Mountain. Once there was an emergency, he would immediately think of a way to inform Qin Wushuang. For this trip, Qin Wushuang only had one goal, and that was the headquarters of the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan. To get to the headquarters, he must travel through at least a few million miles of territory. To Qin Wushuang, this was a tremendous challenge. However, Qin Wushuang did not hesitate. Qin Shixuan's body had not yet turned cold. At this moment, Qin Wushuang must help Qin Shixuan fulfill his wish. Soon, they passed through the Judge Mountain Prefecture. Along the way, Qin Wushuang kept an unusually low profile. Despite this, he still encountered some troublesome matters. However, Qin Wushuang dealt with them skillfully. Of course, the most important thing along the way was training. After the battle with Luo Ting, Qin Wushuang deeply realized that after all, there was still a huge gap between his strength and a true elite warrior. He must make up for this gap as soon as possible. Thus, besides traveling each day, he trained. After walking for more than half a month, he arrived at a huge place called the Danxia Prefecture. This Danxia Prefecture was different than the Orderly Mountain and the Judge Mountain Prefecture. The territory of the Danxia Prefecture was vast, and a few powerful powerhouses occupied it. Among them, there were second-rate powerhouses on par with the scale of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. Because of the existence of these powerhouses, it allowed the Danxia Prefecture to hold a good position across the entire Xian Yuan Mound. In the Xian Yuan Mound, he could rank in the top 15. With Bao Bao and Lone, Qin Wushuang was on the main street of the capital city of Danxia Prefecture. Everywhere was bustling with activity. It was even better than the Orderly Mountain Prefecture and the Judge Mountain Prefecture. The purpose of Qin Wushuang's trip was to visit an artisan. In Danxia Prefecture, this craftsman was best at crafting various types of talismans. Qin Wushuang had come here to ask this master craftsman to make a few things. After walking down a few streets, the further down they went, the closer they got to a remote area. Qin Wushuang frowned and said, "The map drawn by Ying Long can't be wrong, right? He must have the guts." Bao Bao laughed. Looking up, this place was already similar to a slum. Passing through all kinds of alleys, it gave one a dirty and messy feeling. It's strange. Could it be that all master craftsmen have strange habits? Could it be that this master Lu Xianlu likes to live in such a remote area? Initially, the talisman crafting master that Qin Wushuang wanted to visit was called Lu Xianlu. In the entire Xian Yuan Mound, he had a high reputation. The talismans he crafted were definitely top-notch. In the Xian Yuan Mound, countless people begged him to craft talismans. However, when crafting talismans, this master Lu Xianlu judged people by their appearance. He did not receive three things. Firstly, he would not receive those he did not find pleasing to the eye. Secondly, he would not receive those who were notorious. Lastly, and the most realistic, he would not receive those who could not afford the commission. The last two were all right. However, no one was confident about the first one. In fact, whether someone was pleasing to the eye or not, it was just a moment of joy, anger, sorrow, and joy. After walking for a while, Bao Bao's sharp eyes caught a glimpse of an inconspicuous signboard in the small alley on the left. A monotonous word Lu was written on it. Could it be this place? Bao Bao could not believe his eyes. It's not that this place is not good. Only, this master is too good at enduring loneliness. For someone as popular as him to be willing to endure loneliness in such a place, he is truly different from others. Qin Wushuang did not find it strange. In fact, many of the ancient people from Qin Wushuang's former world also enjoyed living in seclusion and were willing to endure loneliness. Perhaps this master Lu Xianlu was a person that did not seek fame and fortune. Bao Bao, most likely, Only a master would have such breadth of mind and stage. If it's someone who could not endure loneliness, how could they become a master? A master does not become one through flattery, but through hard work bit by bit. Although I am an amateur at crafting talismans, for any skill, the most valuable part is the expertise. Bow bow, let's go take a look. Before a true master, we must not neglect. In fact, Qin Wushuang had come this time to craft an extremely practical tool. For this tool, he had been inspired when he saw Luo Ting using it. Luo Ting had used the communication jade plate to communicate with Luo Tongtian, the head Dao warrior of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect from a few million miles away. This proved that the communication jade plate was extremely useful. Qin Wushuang knew that this thing was extremely important. In human countries, he had never seen such a thing, and the cost of this thing was not something the human countries could afford. While he was thinking, he had already arrived at the entrance of the shop. This shop was not big as it sat next to a small alley built with green stone slabs. A young man dressed as an apprentice was holding a carving knife at the door. He was carving seriously on a stone slab. For each stroke, he was serious and focused. When Qin Wushuang saw that he was engrossed in carving, he did not have the heart to disturb him. He stopped Bao Bao and Lone's boorish behavior and stood quietly on the side to admire the masterpiece of this young man. Although Qin Wushuang did not understand carving, he had a certain level of understanding. In his former world, Qin Wushuang had stolen many famous works that had been handed down from overseas, including various elegant works of art. Thus, although he was not a professional when it came to appreciating works of art, he had some intuition. As soon as he saw the style of the carving, he felt a kind of fascinating realm. Certainly, the work that could make Qin Wushuang feel this way would not be ordinary. Qin Wushuang stood on the side and watched patiently. Clearly, that young man was carving the eyes of the statue. The eyes were the window to the soul. If the eyes were carved with charm, the entire work would become lively and lifelike. It would produce a form of intoxicating charm. That young man frowned and pondered deeply. Apparently, he was hesitating on how to start. Suddenly, he turned around and saw Qin Wushuang staring at him attentively. For a moment, he seemed to have been enlightened as he clapped his hands and laughed. Got it. He picked up the carving knife and started to carve on the surface. After a few simple strokes, a pair of bright and piercing eyes came into being. Bao Bao and Lone were shocked. This gaze. Boss, how come this gaze is so familiar? These two looked at this statue with disbelief. Then, they looked at Qin Wushuang and could not help but cry out, Boss, this is you? This young man had acted according to the situation and caught Qin Wushuang's gaze in that instant. Immediately, his spiritual perception became clear. In a few strokes, he had drawn Qin Wushuang's gaze into this statue. It was vivid and vivid. No wonder Bao Bao and Lone were both astonished. Qin Wushuang also felt it was inconceivable. This style had surpassed his imagination. In this world, there were truly such skilled craftsmen who could create such exquisite craftsmanship. It was so lifelike that even Qin Wushuang himself could not help but feel astonished. Chapter 518. It was somewhat difficult to ask Qin Wushuang to show his identity. Qin Wushuang had always concealed his identity. He did not expect to expose himself here. When Lu Xianlu saw Qin Wushuang smiling without speaking a word, he did not mind. He looked at that statue, and suddenly Lu Xianlu said, I only look at people by their eyes. These eyes do not belong to an extremely vicious person. Qin Wushuang let out a sigh of relief, and Bao Bao laughed. Mr. Lu, although our boss also killed people, those people he killed deserve to die. Besides, Lu Xianlu waved his hand and stopped Bao Bao's explanation. I only trust my own judgment. Lu Xianlu's tone gave one the impression of being unreasonable. However, Qin Wushuang could not feel any disgust for his personality. It was because Qin Wushuang knew that someone like Lu Xianlu had such personality. He did not have any malicious intentions or a natural inclination to choke people. Speak. what kind of spiritual talisman do you want to make? Lu Xianlu asked. Mr. Lu, I want to make a few spiritual perception talismans from you. Qin Wushuang spoke frankly. He also knew that this Lu Xianlu liked to be straightforward. Lu Xianlu frowned slightly. Just the spiritual perception talisman? Although the spiritual perception talisman was of high quality, it was not difficult to make as long as one had the raw materials. Most of the people who came here to request to make spiritual talismans wanted to make those super monstrous combat spiritual talismans. The procedure was extremely complicated, and each stroke was meticulous. It took a lot of effort. Master Lu, is this difficult? Bao Bao asked, worried about personal gains and losses. Lu Xianlu could not help but laugh. I only find it strange that your requirements are too low. Do you really only need these things? Qin Wushuang said seriously. If Mr. Lu can help me make a few spiritual perception talismans, I will be extremely grateful. Lu Xianlu said lightly. This is simple. Have you prepared the raw materials? Earlier, Qin Wushuang had observed Luo Ting's spiritual perception talisman and knew that it was made with a special jade stone. The material of the jade stone was very special, but according to Qin Wushuang's observation, he also had this kind of jade stone. Back then, when Senior Qin Shishuan gave him the storage brocade pouch, other than crystals, there were some other things inside. For example, there were a few pieces of black metal and a few pieces of emerald jade. Those materials were very unique, especially those few pieces of jade. They were almost the same material as Luo Ting's communication jade token. However, the essence that Qin Wushuang felt was even more intense than Luo Ting's communication jade token. Therefore, Qin Wushuang felt that the development value of these jade stones should be superior to Luo Ting's communication jade tablet. Qin Wushuang didn't hide anything and took out all the pieces of jade. At first, Lu Xianlu seemed a little indifferent, but when his gaze stopped on those pieces of jade, his eyes suddenly shot out a color of surprise. Even a knowledgeable Lu Xianlu was amazed by these few pieces of jade. You are a disciple to the Heavenly Emperor 8 Gates. Lu Xianlu asked lightly. Qin Wushuang said with a smile. Mr. Lu, are these few pieces of jade suitable to make communication jade tokens? Lu Xianlu let out a rare laugh. Young man, you already know. Why are you still asking me? The quality of this jade stone is good. Wouldn't it be a pity to use it to make communication jade tokens? Bao Bao asked curiously. Mr. Lu, could it be that this jade stone has other functions? Of course, but since you guys don't know, then never mind. There are a total of 6 pieces here. It's enough to make 1 communication jade token. How many do you need? Then make 10. Qin Wushuang thought for a moment and gave a number. Lu Xianlu weighed that jade stone in his hand and threw 5 pieces back to Qin Wushuang. Keep it, this is the extreme green jade essence. It has many uses. To make 10 communication jade tokens, 1 piece is enough. Although Lu Xianlu appeared cold, he was a master with great strength of character. From his point of view, wasting materials was in fact a form of humiliation. Qin Wushuang put away the remaining extreme green jade essence. Vividly, his impression of Lu Xianlu had increased. Qin Wushuang realized that to him, it was extremely important to have the communication jade token. Especially when communicating with his family and teachers, it would be more convenient to have such thing. Mr. Lu, what kind of strength do I need to activate this communication jade token? Qin Wushuang was not familiar with this aspect. Of course, he was extremely concerned. Lu Xianlu said proudly, if it were ordinary talisman craftsmen, they would need to be at the perfect stage to activate it. And the communication jade token I made, especially the one made from the extreme green jade essence, even if one had just entered the upper sky spiritual martial force, they would still be able to activate it. It could be activated at the upper sky spiritual martial force. Inwardly, Qin Wushuang was moved and felt much more relaxed. Then I will have to trouble you, Mr. Lu. Lu Xianlu shot a glance at Qin Wushuang and said lightly, come pick up the jade token at this time tomorrow. After he had finished speaking, He took this extreme green jade essence and walked inside. He no longer paid attention to Qin Wushuang, Bao Bao, and the others. Boss, let's wait at the capital city of the Danxia Prefecture and come back tomorrow. After returning to the capital city of the Danxia Prefecture, Qin Wushuang and the others were not in a rush to find an inn. Instead, they headed towards the Freelance Martial Artist Union. When they entered the Xian Yuan Mount again, the elite warriors sent by the heavenly Luo Daoist sect had already spread across the Xian Yuan Mount. Thus, Qin Wushuang wanted to inquire about the situation at the Freelance Martial Artist Union. When they arrived at the Freelance Martial Artist Union, it was bustling with activity, as usual. A butler came out to receive them and welcomed Qin Wushuang and the others into the main hall. After they had ordered the food and drinks, Qin Wushuang asked, "Mr. Butler, are there any popular missions recently?" That butler laughed. Of course there are popular missions. For the heavenly Luo Daoist sect's million bounty, the freelance martial artist world is going crazy over it. TSK, that kind of mission can only deceive people. We know it's impossible to complete it. We are not going to waste our time. That butler laughed apologetically. Although it's difficult, when luck comes, sometimes it's unstoppable. Perhaps that million bounty is yours? However, Lone asked, "Are there any clues?" That butler said with a bitter smile, "If there are any clues, then it's not your turn. To tell you the truth, that guy seemed to have disappeared from the world." Disappeared from the world? If he could disappear, could his family and sect also disappear? Qin Wushuang asked deliberately. It's truly strange. I heard that in the human countries, his family and sect had all disappeared without a trace. That butler shook his head and turned to leave. Did everyone hear? That Miss Murong seemed to have appeared in the Xian Yuan Mount. Ha! Since that Luo Ting is dead, Miss Murong no longer needs to run away. Of course, she can return to the Xian Yuan Mount. I never expected that the great successor of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect was killed by that Qin Wushuang from the human countries. Could that Qin Wushuang truly be an offspring of the heavenly Emperor Qin clan? Or else, how could he be so devilish? Since they all have the surname Qin, of course they are related to the heavenly Emperor Mountain. Now, the problem is whether or not this Qin Wushuang is a chess piece deliberately arranged by the heavenly Emperor Mountain and was nurtured from a young age. I don't think it's possible. If the heavenly Emperor Mountain had truly nurtured Qin Wushuang in secret, they would never have let him become enemies with the heavenly Luo Daoist sect. The heavenly Luo Daoist sect does not hold any grudges with the heavenly Emperor Qin clan. There's no need to make enemies for no reason. After all, the heavenly Emperor Qin clan already has enough enemies. These rogue cultivators were chatting idly with each other. Qin Wushuang only listened and did not participate. You guys say that Qin Wushuang is truly powerful. He had killed someone like Luo Ting without batting an eyelid. You say, compared to Luo Ting, what are us freelance martial artists? Yes, although that million bounty is a lot, it's not money we earned. A million bounty? I think it's money that will hasten one's life. Whoever is greedy will most likely lose their little life. This is not considered unjust. The most unjust ones are those freelance martial artists that died at the dispersed praying mountain. They did not know what was going on and got tricked by Luo Ting's vicious scheme to send themselves to their deaths. That's why a group of people with a bounty wanted to go to the heavenly Emperor Mountain to complain. Now that Luo Ting is dead, this is a case without a clue. Now that I think about it, the person that stopped the freelance martial artists at the dispersed praying mountain should be Qin Wushuang, right? You guys say that Qin Wushuang is truly exceptional. Such a monstrous person had walked out from the human countries. If this person had not been killed by the heavenly Luo Daoist sect, I am afraid the entire Tianxian land would tremble because of him. Just as these people were chatting with assurance, a butler walked out quickly from inside and said with a bitter smile, I say, friends, you guys should pay attention to your chatting. Although this is the Freelance Martial Artist Union, Most likely there will be people from those major sects and powerhouses mixed in. You guys would not want to bring trouble to yourselves just because of some words, right? Initially at the Freelance Martial Artist Union at the Orderly Mountain Prefecture, everyone should have heard about how that Iron Holler died, right? When he mentioned Iron Holler, everyone's face turned green. Especially those freelance martial artists that had spoken the most, their faces were filled with fear. They looked around as if they were afraid that an elite warrior of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect would suddenly appear from the corner and kill them on the spot. Just when this great hall was in absolute silence, suddenly, a few freelance martial artists rushed in from outside the door. They shouted while panting heavily, a fight, a fight! What's wrong? Where is the fight? Who is fighting with whom?" These freelance martial artists were all extremely bored people. Usually, when they had nothing to do, they wished for the world to be in chaos. When they heard that there was a show to watch, their blood boiled as they all wanted to go and watch the show. I heard that it's people of the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan and the Heavenly Luo Daoist sect. At the profound Dragon Plain, 600 miles west of the capital city of the Danxiao Prefecture, they are fighting fiercely. I heard that the Heavenly Emperor Mountain had already learned about the actions of the Heavenly Luo Daoist sect. They were extremely furious and sent elite warriors to investigate. They started a fight without a word. Heavenly Emperor Qin clan? Qin Wushuang's heart thumped. Had the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan finally gotten involved? If the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan got involved, then the entire situation would escalate. Most likely, the situation would develop into an uncontrollable state and set off a huge uproar. From there, it would trigger a major earthquake in the Xianyuan Mount. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.qijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 519. After receiving this news, Qin Wushuang immediately went to the Freelance Martial Artist Union. He found an inn and checked in. On the second day, Qin Wushuang took Bao Bao and Lone to head towards Lu Xianlu's shop. When they arrived at that remote alley, something unexpected happened to Qin Wushuang. In that small alley, a dozen elite warriors dressed in black had surrounded them. Each of these people had a gloomy expression as they surrounded Lu Xianlu's shop. When they saw Qin Wushuang and Bao Bao approaching, one of the young men who was waving a paper fan shot a few glances at Qin Wushuang and said lightly, "Unrelated people, do not come close." Qin Wushuang said with a frown, "I am here to pick up my custom-made goods. I'm not an unrelated person." That young man said proudly, "Whatever you say doesn't count. If I say you are, then you are." This was a typical tyrannical argument. Qin Wushuang laughed coldly when he heard this. "This way, you have more authority than Master Lu? Stop with the nonsense. I told you to get lost, so get lost." Behind that young man, a few men in black berated him. Bao Bao and Lone, who stood next to Qin Wushuang, became furious. They seemed ready to make a move at any moment. Qin Wushuang waved his hand and stopped Bao Bao and Lone's impulse. At this time, Lu Xianlu walked out slowly from that shop and looked at this group of people coldly. When that young man waving the paper fan saw Lu Xianlu, he did not dare to neglect and retreated a few steps cautiously. Lu Xianlu smiled lightly. "Kid, since you dare to cause trouble here, what are you afraid of?" That young man stared at Lu Xianlu with a gloomy expression. "Master Lu, this time, our Dao warrior is extremely sincere. If you insist on doing things your own way and do not give us face, I am afraid this time, my Dao warrior will not be as friendly as before." Lu Xianlu gave a carefree smile. Apparently, he did not take this young man's threat to heart. After a moment, Lu Xianlu said lightly, "Luo Tongtian invited me to craft spiritual talismans for you guys, but I never agreed. Not to mention this time's request is too excessive. Go back and tell Luo Tongtian that I'm not interested in any of his suggestions. It's because your heavenly Luo Daoist sect has violated my first principle. Lu Xinluo's first principle was to not receive anyone he disliked. Inwardly, Qin Wushuang was slightly moved. Could this group of people be people of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect? At that moment, he didn't know how to maintain his composure and just stood to the side. A fierce look flashed across the young man's face as he uttered coldly, "Master Lu, I've already spoken nicely. Every time a head Dao warrior was rejected by you, although he was angry, he tolerated it. But this time, if you don't give me face, you'll have to bear the consequences." Lu Xianlu laughed heartily. "I wonder what kind of means Luo Tongtian has to deal with me." Lu, cut the crap. Don't be so shameless. Are you going to lend me the observant finger jade plate or not? Today, I'm here to borrow it from you. If you don't give it to me, my head Dao warrior will come and take it personally in a few days. At that time, you won't be so polite anymore. Not to mention Lu Xianlu. Even Qin Wushuang felt that this young man was overbearing when he heard his words. When he learned that these people were people of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect, he felt an extra layer of concern. He wanted to know what kind of schemes these guys were planning. Most likely, each of the moves of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect would be extremely important to Qin Wushuang. Now, most likely, the object they were borrowing from Master Lu would not be an ordinary object. Suddenly, Bao Bao cried out, "Hey, if you want to borrow something, wait until we take our own stuff. Don't think that the heavenly Luo Taoist sect is so great. Let me tell you, with my master's identity, you can't afford to offend him." Bao Bao had deliberately spoken carelessly and caused that young man to look at him with a sidelong glance. He could not help but glance at Qin Wushuang and his friends. In a Xianyuan mound, one would not dare to speak big words without strength and background. Since the other party had said it this way, certainly he would not speak nonsense. When he thought here, this young man did not dare to neglect as he asked with a low voice, "What do you want to take?" "We asked Mr. Lu to make a few items. It seems that there is no need to tell you." Bao Bao still spoke with an unconcerned tone. However, Qin Wushuang asked Lu Xianlu, "Mr. Lu, is everything ready? If you want to take something, come with me." Lu Xianlu flicked his sleeve and walked inside, while ignoring those people of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. Although that young man had a face full of misfortune, he did not dare to stop him. Although the head Dao warrior had the power to deal with Lu Xianlu, it did not mean that he had the power to do so. He could flaunt his power before Lu Xianlu. However, in the end, he still carried the name of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. Or else, even if he had two guts, he would not have dared to act impudently before Lu Xianlu. Qin Wushuang remained calm and collected as he followed behind Lu Xianlu. Although that young man was annoyed, in the end, he did not stop them. He only looked at Qin Wushuang and his friends with alertness. Inwardly, he was calculating whether or not to deal with these people. Qin Wushuang knew the hesitation inside this young man's heart and was not worried. Instead, he followed behind Lu Xianlu calmly and walked into that shop. Lu Xianlu led them to the inner room. He put those 10 communication jade plates on a special tray. "Here, these are your things." Qin Wushuang took it and put it into the storage ring. The young man outside shouted again, "Lu Xianlu, don't hesitate. Give us an explanation." Qin Wushuang frowned and said to Lu Xianlu, "Mr. Lu, do you need me to help you clean up this group of trash?" Lu Xianlu rolled his eyes. "Do you think I don't know how to kill people? It's not interesting to kill these little rats. Let them be noisy." Lu Xianlu gave a long sigh and raised his head with a complicated expression. He looked around. Qin Wushuang followed Lu Xianlu's gaze and saw that this wide inner room was filled with different kinds of sculptures, including the one Lu Xianlu had carved at the door yesterday. However, the most eye-catching one was in the middle position. There was a girl carved from pure jade. From afar, she truly appeared as if a living person had walked out from fairyland. Between the brows of this girl, there seemed to be a spirit. She gave people the feeling that she could fly away with the wind at any moment. This girl had picturesque features and a face like the ancient moon. She had a moving appearance. When Lu Xianlu's gaze stopped here, he gave another long sigh. Little sister Qian, 300 years have passed. Do you feel lonely in the other world? Lu Xianluo's tone seemed to be intoxicated. Qin Wushuang and Bao Bao also looked at each other in dismay. Yet, they did not dare to disturb him. They knew that most likely there was a period of history here, yet they did not dare to ask. They only stood on the side awkwardly. Lu Xianlu did not ask them to leave, nor did he ask them to stay. His hands trembled slightly as he caressed that jade sculpture. Vividly, the corner of his eyes had become somewhat moist. Little sister Qian, that old thief Luo Tongtian, for 300 years, he always used different methods to torture me. It seems it's time to settle the grudge of 300 years. When Lu Xianlu said here, suddenly, a wave of rich, murderous intentions shot out from his eyes. This murderous intention made Qin Wushuang shudder with fear. Could it be that this Mr. Lu was going to kill someone? When Lu Xianlu saw Qin Wushuang and his friends were somewhat alert, suddenly he laughed. He walked near that jade sculpture and squatted down. Then he picked up a floor tile between the 3 fingers. Underneath this floor tile, there was a hidden compartment. Lu Xianlu took out a disc-like object with some strange patterns drawn on it. It was a compass. Immediately, a name emerged in Qin Wushuang's mind. Observant Finger Jade Compass. This object should be the one that the young man outside had mentioned. Lu Xianlu looked at this object and revealed a complicated expression. After a moment, he gave a bitter smile and threw that disc to Qin Wushuang. Young man, this object is for you. Qin Wushuang caught it instinctively and said in surprise, Mr. Lu, how can I accept this? Lu Xianlu did not care. This object is something that Luo Tongtian yearns for even in his dreams, but I can't let him have his way. Qin Wushuang felt that this object was not ordinary. Otherwise, why would someone like Luo Tongtian care so much about this object? Obviously, this object was not ordinary. Taking in his hand and looking at it, he only felt that the needle on this compass seemed to be spinning continuously. And the trajectory of the spinning was very strange, without any pattern at all. Qin Wushuang held in his hand, but did not know how to use it for a moment. Lu Xianlu said lightly, Luo Tongtian wants to use this observant finger jade compass to harm others. How can I let him have his way? The person that Luo Tongtian wants to kill must be his enemy. How can I let Luo Tongtian have his way? Don't underestimate this object. Luo Tongtian has his reasons for wanting it so urgently. This item was made of a very special material and possessed a very powerful instructive ability. Luo Tongtian wants to use it to search for the location of his enemy. Bao Bao asked curiously, This object, is this miraculous? Lu Xianlu said, This object can collect spiritual perception automatically. Through the perception of the spiritual perception, it can lock onto the location of that person. And the success rate is 100%. If we don't even know where the other party is, how can we collect the spiritual perception? Apparently, Bao Bao did not believe it. This is the miraculous part of this object. As long as it is a place where that person had appeared, a place with powerful spiritual perception, as long as it is within 3 months, there will be some residual spiritual perception. As long as there is a little bit left, it will be collected and locked onto the enemy's location. Hearing such miraculous effects, Qin Wushuang found it unimaginable. At the same time, he felt a wave of coldness. If Luo Tongtian were to get this object, it would not be a good thing for him. Qin Wushuang. With this object, as long as he collected Qin Wushuang's spiritual perception, he could easily lock onto his location and encircle him. If Qin Wushuang did not know about this object and allowed it to fall into Luo Tongtian's hands, then even if Qin Wushuang were to die, he would most likely die without knowing why. He would not know where the problem was. Bao Bao thought quickly as he said with a chuckle, Mr. Lu, then why are you giving this to us? Could it be you do not have the confidence to deal with that Luo Tongtian? A trace of a strange smile emerged from the corner of Lu Xianluo's mouth. Indeed, I do not have the confidence to deal with Luo Tongtian. However, I already said before that Luo Tongtian's enemy is my friend. Guys, don't tell me that when you guys mentioned the name Luo Tontian, you did not feel anything. As soon as he said these words, the expression of Qin Wushuang and Bao Bao changed. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.